Anything anyone saw? Hearing none, all those in favor of the minutes say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The minutes are approved from January 22nd. Now we have there are no special orders, we'll have our study session. We invited both Scott Hall from our engineering firm Fleece and Vanderbrink and the financial experts to come and talk to us today. The first will be wastewater treatment plant improvement plan by Scott Hall, a Michigan Tech engineer.
There we go. Awesome. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I just kind of want to talk to you guys a little bit about the current needs at the wastewater treatment facility and talk about some of the plan that we've been working through with city staff, kind of outlook ahead at some of the upcoming projects, and then I'll kind of turn it over to the finance guys and let them talk about their side of things here. Going to kind of walk through some of the projects that have been ongoing at the treatment plant, just a quick overview of those, because it has been a lot of consistent good work going on at the plant. And then just kind of that future outlook for what projects are on the horizon. Talk about the different funding options. I'll hit it real high level and then let the experts dive into some of the details. And then talk about some of the project planning and approach to kind of locking in the full scope for the project. So this table right here shows capital improvement plan projects that the city has done for over the past 7 years, 2015 through 2017. I won't go through individual projects, but just kind of looking at the scale of the projects, we're in that $200,000 to $500,000 a year type spend on the projects. And you know, the city made a big investment in 2009 to make a big upgrade. And so this has kind of just been the maintenance of some of the older equipment and some minor upgrades over the years. And so it's been a good, consistent effort. But as we've seen with costs on everything, the costs continue to rise along with the scope on some of the projects. This table again has a lot of information on it, and we won't dive into the specific projects necessarily. But the column on the left is kind of a 1 to 10 year capital improvement plan that we've kind of identified through consistent capital improvement planning and the SAW program, where they put together the asset management plan. And some of the larger critical assets at the plant that weren't addressed during the 2009 project are now reaching, you know, they're installed in the late 70s, maybe early 90s, so they're at that 30 to 40 year time frame where we need to start looking at an upgrade. And these are pretty major components, so we start to see the dollar values in this 24 budget year for individual projects reaching that $900,000 to $1 million for a single component at the plant. And then that's a big expense. And when you start to stack those up year after year, in the first 5 years we're up to $3.7 million, and then when you look out to even the next 10 years, there's another $4 million in that number. So certainly a larger scope than has been taken off in the past, and this is, you know, just indicative of the age of the facility and some of the major components that do need to be replaced every 20 to 30 years. So the other thing to kind of look at is as we do projects piece by piece, every year that goes by, that project goes out another year, and that cost inflates another year down the road. So a project that might cost $275,000 now, in 10 years might be $400,000. So looking at ways to combine some of these larger projects and looking at potential funding opportunities with low interest loans to tackle a larger project potentially, to set the city up to be able to fund these improvements here. Through this slide up, this is just some of the sanitary sewer improvements that have been identified through the city's capital improvements plan, kind of that 5-year time frame. Again, this is more just, if we're looking at taking out a bond for a project, we want to make sure we encompass, you know, a good majority of the work that the city's going to be doing, because then it wouldn't be cash funded, you'd be paying on the loan, but you'd be tackling the necessary improvements. So the different,
Scott, can you go back one?
yeah,
What's Mitchell Creek something or other?
Mitchell Creek Court, Mayor, is the alley. There are a few alleys got listed as roads a number of years ago for kind of too long of a story for this evening. But Mitchell Creek Court is behind Chemical Bank, in between Pine and Maple. That's Mitchell Creek Court, and it's you're right along Mitchell Creek Park.
The alley there.
We call it Mitchell Creek Court.
Oh.
And it has a problem with grease buildup, partly because of its design failure. There's a belly in the line, is my understanding. Scott, you stop me when I say something wrong, but and you know, there's sort of a really bad section, but if you do up, you know, let's say we want to tackle just that, that's maybe half of it. Should you just do the whole thing? And I think that's maybe part of the wide variation in cost there is what is the beginning and ending point, but that's the spot.
I see. Before you go on, Scott, any commissioners have questions before he moves on?
there's a lot of information on those tables, so if we need to dive into any of it, let me know.
Okay. Thank you.
So kind of looking at that, you know, 10-year outlook, there's, you know, a good $6 to $7 million in need, and what are the options to go about funding that? Historically, you know, local cash funding has worked for these smaller jobs. That couple $100,000, the city has set up their rate structure in a way to help cash fund these projects with cash on hand, which is great. The other option is a municipal bond through a bank. The city can get a bond for that. And then the two main avenues for subsidized funding through government programs are USDA Rural Development and the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, which the city did go after last year. So again, I'm just going to touch kind of high level on these different funding mechanisms. I'll let these guys talk to some of the details, but yeah, local cash funding is just cash on hand, cash reserves, municipal bonds on the open market, 20 to potential 30-year term. Interest rates are around 4 to 6% usually. And that's, you just apply through the bank for those. USDA Rural Development, they have a special division for specifically water and wastewater projects, targeted for communities that are less than 10,000 people. So you guys are kind of right on that cusp, but at the latest one, you would still qualify. Similar, you have to prepare a formal application, and they have loan terms up to 40 years, typically 30 years is kind of what you're looking. You don't want a loan for longer than the life of the equipment. So we got to look at that. And interest rates on this one are, depending on exactly where you guys would fall, 2.25% to maybe 3.75%. The Clean Water State Revolving Fund, so you may recall we did an application for you guys last spring. Unfortunately, the city fell just outside of the funding range that the state was able to offer. The advantage of what we did last year, though, is that project rolls over and you're thrown right back into the pool for this year. So we've already submitted to the state that we want to be reconsidered for that funding. And there's no extra cost or effort to just have your name in the hat for that. So that's moving forward. And those are 20 to 30 year bonds at 2.5% to 2.75% is where they're at right now. They update that every year, so could change slightly. But those are kind of the three main avenues there for funding.
Scott, can you explain what you said about why we didn't get that grant?
Yeah. So the State Revolving Fund is a program it's a statewide program where communities from across the state all submit these plans and they score them based on, they have about 10 different criteria for compliance issues, permit violations, combined sewer overflows, that sort of thing. Essentially, if your plant has a lot of problems or you haven't managed it well in the past, you get rewarded in points. And so you guys have done a good job maintaining it, so kind of scored middle of the road. I think you're about 40 or 50 points, and the cutoff was around 60. So you're kind of right on the cusp there. And it was really competitive this past year. A lot of the money ended up going to larger communities. Detroit, Lansing ate up a lot of money last year. And they had more applications than they ever had in the past, this past year. So we'll see where it ends up this year. It may not be as competitive, so the scoring could shuffle a little bit. But you've done a nice job maintaining the plant, so you're not getting some of those. You don't necessarily want some of those points. There's more headaches than they're worth there.
I have a question. That 6.2 million, does that include all of the items on page 4? Or is it
It includes,
addition to?
it's a majority of those items.
Okay.
So we
In the
put
one to
together
five
kind of
year.
our best estimate at the time for that. There's, if we look at other programs, there might be some we want to roll into that 6.2 to get up to the full amount. But as of last year, that was kind of the target priority ones were those.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Scott, could you just briefly talk to the commission about how, when you do USDA, or I'm assuming Eagle projects, there's, sort of strings that may be attached that could
Yes.
increase costs? Can you mention some of those?
Yeah, so both the Eagle Clean Water State Revolving Fund and USDA Rural Development have requirements for American iron and steel. So all products must be made in America. And more recently, they've also adapted the BABA, so Buy America, Build America. So those are driving up costs. On the state revolving fund projects, we have prevailing wage, Davis-Bacon wage rates for all the contractors to comply with. So there's certainly some more hoops we have to jump through in the bidding process that can drive the cost up a little bit. We're buying on the open market. There's none of those stipulations, and the schedules are a little bit more relaxed. There's pretty defined deadlines for, say, the state revolving fund. They have to close on a loan by a certain date every year. So the project is pretty rigid on the schedule, where it gives a little more flexibility with USDA or bonding.
So Scott, is it true that every penny of these payments has to come from the money from the water treatment plant? We can't put money in that's not from wastewater, work.
I'll probably defer to you guys on that potentially, or I'd have to look into that.
Repeat
There's,
the question again?
Mark, I asked you that,
Yeah, and it's maybe as much of a Carla question as anybody, or Lorraine, or Commissioner James, I'm sorry. So the idea behind the funds, both water and wastewater, is that they are self-supporting, right? And that the ratepayers, whether they're in town, out of town, wherever, fund the operation, maintenance, the expansion, whatever that might be. Is it illegal to, have general fund money that went there? I don't know that I would go that far as say it, but the way the system is designed is that the rates support.
is that a state law, a state recommendation,
I
or?
do know if you have a revenue bond to fund the state revolving fund or USDA fund, the revenue bond is supported by the rate structure for your sewer program.
Okay.
So I know that for sure. I don't know on a municipal bond. I'd have to look into that.
I mean, you could use general fund monies to pay for system improvements if you wanted. Generally, most municipalities don't do that because it's a revenue-based system.
Okay.
And, general funds, there's always a use for them in other areas.
Thank you.
The unique thing about the general fund is it can contribute money to any of the other city funds, where other funds can't do
Can't
that.
do that. Okay. Sorry, Scott, lost your train of thought.
Great questions. So kind of just the next steps, where do we go from here, project timeline. One thing kind of in talking with Heather, Mark, and Jake is brushing up the wastewater treatment plant master plan. This is a planning document where we go through process by process of the treatment plant and look at the 20-year outlook and exactly what do we need to do for this process over the next 20 years, looking at potential growth, potential new regulations, permit conditions. We look at a wide range of items here, and really nail down exactly what that scope needs to be if we're gonna go after a large funding package. So that we're not back here and hopefully in 5 years saying we need more money. And then once we kind of put that list and the prioritized list together, meet with the financial advisors and kind of strategize what size project makes sense to take on here. Is it the 6.2 or can we go a little bigger? Or do we wanna keep it lower and plan for other improvements down the road? There's a lot of different scenarios that they can run and work through with you guys on that. And then kind of locking in that project scope and choosing which funding mechanism do we want to pursue further. Some of it is out of our control with the state revolving fund. We don't know if we're gonna get that. Bonding on the open market is, you're likely to be able to find somebody to give you a loan. It's what that interest rate is gonna be. And USDA, they do have a limited amount of funds. It hasn't been quite as competitive as SRF in past years. There is another application process you have to work through, but the document we prepared for the Eagle revolving fund is relatively transferable. We gotta tweak a couple things, but it's relatively transferable into the RD program. So actually the master plan, when F&V first got involved with the city back in 2011, we put together a master plan. I actually went back and looked through that, and it was kind of cool to see the master plan that was put together in 2011 almost mirrored the city's CIP work from 2015 through 2021. So checked off all those boxes, and there was, you know, the 20 to 30 year projects in that master plan that were kind of gray and a rough guess at that time because there's some variability, and those are the kind of the projects we're facing now. So 2011, we're coming up on almost 14, 15 years. So looking at updating that and having that 20-year outlook at the facility and prioritizing those short-term and long-term needs to get a comprehensive, you know, overall project there. This is, I put together a draft timeline here of kind of the ideal perfect world. This is all moving forward. We'd work through the master plan here this summer, get the final recommendations and presentations done to you guys late summer, early fall, and then kind of work through some of the financial scenarios this fall and identify what we want to go after for funding in the winter of 25. Try to lock in the funding early 25 to get design and bidding going. But you can kind of see this planning process to get to construction. We're 3 years away from this even getting built. So this is a process that takes a lot of time and planning up front. So this is kind of the overall big picture. But any questions on any of the individual projects or approach or anything?
Please, the supervisor from Big Rapids Township is here, and they utilize our sewer system. He'd like to ask a question. Carmen Bean?
You have to say that that's who I was.
That's part of the deal, Carmen.
My thoughts are, you know, I know in the wastewater agreement, there's a replacement. And I wonder what Alice might be, that could offset these costs, some of these costs. Because I know it's not that high.
I can take a stab at that. The replacement fund is how we've done these projects all along. I don't know what the balance is, but we can get it to you for sure. And yeah, that would be a part of how we pay the loan off, right? At least so the bonding that we had done in 2009 expires in 2030. So we're gonna have, if we do this, some small overlap until we have more freedom to fully fund that replacement fund, you know, at a more consistent rate. So I get you more information on that, but that's how we've been doing these projects all along.
As you referenced earlier, if indeed the funding exceeds the life of the, I'll look at a shorter term funding.
Yeah, 20 years seems to be a good number.
Yep.
Stuff,
Mechanical equipment's 20 years, you got big tanks, maybe 50 years, so.
And one other quick
Sure,
one.
please.
Is the PowerPoint available? I would like to cover it with the board if I could, with our board.
I will make sure you have it.
Thank you very much, Mark, I
If
appreciate
you would
it.
like, you can help pay for it then, Carmen.
I assume we would.
I usually do.
I think you guys do help pay for the whole water treatment plant.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's a maintenance fund and all.
Sure. Thanks, Scott. Yes, please, Lorraine.
I just have a quick question. On the 2009 bond issue, was that ever refunded, or is that all the original issue that happened in 2009? Do you
Was
do
it refunded?
Well, you know how you can refund the bond?
Oh, refinance.
Refinance.
Your rate
Oh,
is too low, you wouldn't be able to refinance.
So the rate was really good in 2009, okay. Okay. Is
We've
that
been
the,
monitoring that, so.
is that the only, yes, financial people are supposed to do that, thank you very much. Okay, is there any other debt in the sewer fund besides that 2009? That's it? That's the only one left?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else anyone has for Scott? Then are you all set, Scott?
I'm all set, yeah.
Thank you very
Thank you very
much.
much.
Very
Appreciate
good. And then we'll have the next portion of the study session with Northland Securities, please, gentlemen.
Steve, we have all these in our packet. Yeah, but the audience, I can hand them out. You go ahead and do your. Go. Julie?
Okay, so now for the fun part, the financing. So as Scott mentioned, there's pretty much, there's a few different options. There's, the USDA loans and then doing a conventional bond sale. I ran, pretty much debt schedules for both of them, and there's a few different characteristics, as Scott had mentioned. With the USDA bonds, they're subject to more federal regulations, so, it adds a little bit more, hoops to jump through when you're applying for the financing. And when you apply, there's not really a set time frame to where you're gonna get the money, because it could be a pretty lengthy process. So with the USDA bonds, they let you take out the loans up to 40 years, which is a benefit if you have revenue constraints. And speaking to the USDA, they said that the best time to apply for loans to receive an allocation would be October 1st of the new year, because the state typically, the state's fiscal year end is September 30th, so they start doling out their allocations in the fall. So when you're planning it, it would just be a good idea to apply for funding kind of in that time frame. So speaking with Carla, she mentioned that the USDA stated that you would qualify under the intermediate interest rate, which is 3%. That's subject to change. Every quarter, they make adjustments to the rate depending on pretty much current market rates. So, with the USDA, it's, like I said, you're not guaranteed funding, a little bit more hoops compared to traditional bonding. If the city decided to go out with a conventional bond, interest rates would be a little bit higher. Right now, we're estimating a 30-year at 5.5, 25-year at 5.25, and 20-year at 5%. These bonds, we typically go out you can go up to 30 years on it, and, you know, we can adjust the debt service schedule as needed. With conventional bonding, there's a few things that we would have to get in order to sell the bonds. We'd have to get a rating from an accredited rating agency, which, we pretty much based, the city at an A rating, including bond insurance, so we'd have to, depending on what your rating fell under, we might have to go out for, bond insurance to be included in the deal to make it a little bit more marketable. And we'd have to get a official statement, which pretty much highlights all the system's revenues and describes the bonds to investors. So on the second page, I had ran debt service schedules at what a traditional bonding would look like, just with your principal and interest payments. I ran it at a 20-year, 25, and 30. And pretty much you would have a debt service reserve, which you're able to bond for, which is pretty much, once you close on the bonds, you'll have the money in a debt service reserve account. And that will pay for your final principal payment on the bonds. Well, your final debt service payment. So you'll pretty much, there'll be a year shaved off of these debt service schedules with the debt service reserve. And let's see. So with traditional bonding too, the cost of issuance would be a little bit higher because we would have to we'd have to get a rating from the bond industry, or the bond rating agencies, and there's a little bit more fees that would go into it with bond insurance and so forth. Okay, and when it comes to the USDA on the third page, I ran pretty much a schedule for 25, 30, or I'm sorry, 20, 25, 30, and a 40-year bond amortization. And the USDA, their debt service requirements are 1/10 of your maximum debt service payment, which they do it a little bit differently. For 10 years, you're able to fund your debt service, so you don't necessarily take it out with bond proceeds. And I ran them at a 3% rate, the intermediate rate. And as you can see, the cost of issuance is a little bit lower just because there's less fees that go into the USDA financing. And one thing I also wanted to make mention of on the conventional bonding interest rates, we were pretty conservative on those. There's going to be a few Fed meetings where the market's pretty much anticipating some rate cuts down the line. So financing has the potential to be a little bit cheaper than what's shown here, but we just want to be conservative because the markets are volatile, and just want to make sure that, you know, we're planning accordingly. And I think that's about it.
Questions?
Man,
Please.
I think you, unless I misunderstood you, I thought you just said the cost of issuance for the USDA was lower when it's higher.
I'm sorry. Well, with the cost of issuance, there's also the the underwriter's discount included into it. So those kind of get factored in. Or that would technically be a part of the cost of issuance.
Okay, but as an accountant looking at this, I'm looking at 95,000, and then I'm looking at 70,000. So one is 25,000 lower than the other.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I should have said the cost of issuance with the underwriter's discount is
Okay.
a little bit more expensive.
Thank you.
So sorry, Mayor. Where does the Eagle option fit in here? Cause it's like, we've got two things in front of us. There were 4 slides, right? So our options were local, which I get, municipal, which we just covered the bond, and we covered USDA, but then where do the Eagle funds, the
I'm
Eagle
not sure
grant?
these folks had that information.
Okay.
And as I look back at that, you know, it's, so the USDA one, I think, was, quoted, if you call it a quote, at 3%. And Scott has the revolving fund at 2.5%. So it'd be similar, but a little less. But, yeah, I don't think we provided them with that information.
Now, would that be supplemental, or is it
Would be a
one or
little
the
cheap.
other?
The payments for the Eagle revolving fund would be a little less expensive than they would be in the USDA. So if USDA is, where is it at here?
3, I think.
460. I don't know, if somebody else could say, I don't know, I'm guessing 440 or something along those lines, in terms of payment.
Sir,
Is
you
that
have
fair?
an addition?
Yeah.
We really haven't had time to work out as a finance team the logistics of all the options, but in theory, if you get funding from the Eagle revolving loan program this year, then that is what we would utilize. We've had other customers that have requested a full amount of their project and have been given less than that. So it's possible you might get some funding from Eagle. Really about late September, October is when those numbers come out, 2024. So we really won't know what option we're gonna look at, because that, I believe that to be your preferred option, is getting funding from Eagle. So we're sort of really gonna have to wait until we find out what's happening there before we move on to USDA or open market.
That makes sense, thank you.
Is it one or the other? You can't do a combination, like if you weren't,
If you don't get all your funding from Eagle.
right,
Then we would then look at either USDA or
Okay.
bonds to complete the balance of the
okay,
proceeds.
thank you.
Other questions? So next step with them, Mark, is to,
Mayor, I think we're gonna be coming back soon, maybe even at the next meeting, and look to move forward with the master plan that Scott mentioned. I think that's a good next step to see and really nail down total project scope. And we're gonna, I think that's our next step. After that, we're gonna have to talk this through over the next 6 months, if this is something we're comfortable with. You had asked me a question, Mayor, this morning about, you know, what could this potentially do to a ratepayer or one of us at our homes? We looked at that, and we thought maybe about a 10% increase, so 10% is about $2. If you, I think our unit cost is roughly $7, we use 3 or 4, so that's 20 or 28, 21 or 28, and then 10%, you know, $2.50 would be, what we would be looking at in a rate, increase to support this. Again, we'd be able to take off the books shortly, you know, relatively shortly, 2030, about a $500,000 payment, I think, is what we're making now on our current debt issue. So there may be some opportunity to, you know, look at that again at that point in time, but, over the next, you know, 5 years, I think, you know, to be able to do something like this, we would need to talk rates too.
But when you bring whatever you're talking about, bringing back to us, could you also include the balances in the operating fund and in the replacement fund? And I would like to see what's left of the bond amortization schedule that's currently in the books.
We'll
Just
put
so
that
we
all
can-
together for you.
Okay, just so we can have a, you know, a little bit better picture of it all. And maybe an example of what you were talking about too, Mr. Gifford, on the rates, what it would actually do. The
Yeah, we could
number of
propose-
people you have, how much it's gonna increase, you know, that kind of thing.
Sure.
Just to give us an idea. That's a big project.
Do we, Carla, he was talking about how there's a sort of one payment left, so it shaves off 1 year. I wonder if we have that in our current you know, that would be something we could look
I'm
at
not
too.
sure.
Well, I wasn't on board in 2009. However, I'm pretty darn sure it was mandated and put in. There must be a reserve line item in there.
Okay,
Yeah, she can easily find
Well,
it,
that
I'm
would-
sure. But that's what he's referring to.
yeah.
For those who don't know, Lorraine was also the city treasurer for
25 years.
25 years before she ran for commission. So she has this insider information.
But I've been bought, so, you know.
Mayor,
Yes.
I just, this is something we're thinking about, working on, and we just, you know, if we're going down the wrong path, that's, you know, certainly I know you and other commissioners will tell us we are, but,
The question I always
it's a big
have
issue.
is who decides what needs fixing when, and how reliable is the person who's saying we need it? And whether it's Jake or whether it's Scott or whoever it is, that's what we have to have faith in, that they're telling us the real skinny.
Right, absolutely, yeah, and
$6.8
that comes from the
million.
entire wastewater team, from Heather to Jake to the guys, all the operators and the guys at Fleece and Vandenbrink. I have that faith, but we need to share that or make sure that you folks do as well. And I think just talking about it, looking at this master plan is gonna be a key piece of that. Because I know they'll demonstrate to you pictures, examples, and I think you'll be able to see that, but you're right, that's a very important part.
Thank you. Any other questions? Please, Carmen.
Will these improvements, this upgrade, will this increase the functional capacity of the plant?
The total capacity of the plant will be considered as part of the study. We'll work with the city on what kind of their long-term goals are. And if we're concerned about overall capacity, we can look at what upgrades would be needed. But at the current time, there wasn't any planned expansion. But growth is certainly a consideration of the master plan.
Do you by chance know what the current capacity is? I wouldn't.
Two point four is the average day. That's what it's set for, is 2.4 million, and we're currently doing about 1 per day. I think that's what it's designed for, is average flow. So if you hit 2.4, you'd wanna increase because you're,
Yes, I understand.
but we're about 1.2 right now.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming up.
Thank you.
Next, public comment, not related items on the agenda. Is there anyone interested, Rosemary? No. Okay, thank you. We'll go right to, there are no public hearings today. Into general business. Anyone is allowed to speak on an item. They have 3 minutes. You can speak to each resolution once the commission has completed their thoughts. The first resolution is adopting an amended travel policy for the city of Big Rapids. Who's gonna speak on that, Mark? Should Lorraine?
Sure.
Lorraine wrote it 35 years ago.
I probably did, the original one, but I don't know if it was 35 years ago.
Carla, are you gonna be the
Carla's the,
speaker?
yeah.
Fire away.
This is the, policy that we have before you, and this time we did put some rates in for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So that was the only change from, when we attempted to bring it to you before, and then the changes that we're proposing are listed, in red. So if anybody has any questions on anything here, it also tells you, in order to get breakfast, lunch, or dinner, what times, what the time frames are to get those meals. We have to spell that out for people.
So how often do we have to look at this policy?
If we're gonna change well, it depends. I guess I would defer to Brad on that, maybe.
I mean, it really isn't something we should dwell on too much, right?
No, because it deals with finance and
Finance.
money, the position is that any policy that deals with the city's money goes to the city commission for revision or looking at any changes, so.
If we're gonna make changes, you're gonna see it.
Okay.
If the city commission wanted, they could adopt a resolution that would confer authority or give authority to city manager or city staff to do these policies on their own, but that's your prerogative as the legislative body.
Have we always adopted, has the commission always adopted this policy? I think we have, haven't we?
I believe, from my history on it, that Brad's position is the same as Eric's. There's loads of policies that don't come to the commission, but when they have money in them, they always have.
Okay.
So that's,
We voted on this before?
we've changed it like 4 times in the last 4 years or something, so I'm hoping this is the last one.
Well, what changed it so much recently in the past?
Candy bars or something, Mark?
Maybe.
No.
No, I think I exaggerated a little bit, but it has been recently.
Just some clarification, so
Yeah.
people,
Right, questions from the commission?
I only have a comment. Thank you so much for providing both documents. It was very, very clear on what the changes were.
Anybody else? Is there a motion for the resolution adopting the amended travel policy for the city?
so moved.
Then I'll second it.
Motion and second. Questions? Hearing none because it's a money issue. Tammy, I guess we'll do a roll call.
Epley?
Yes.
Gunther?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Johnson? Yes.
Yes.
Motion to approve the travel policy passed. Next, a resolution authorizing emergency purchase of police vehicles. We rarely do emergency purchases, so Heather, is that you? Or is that Mark?
I think I'm gonna take a run at this
All
one
right.
here. So, yeah, I know emergency purchases are not ideal, and they're not something, and they're designed to not happen, right? I mean, that's the way the city charter's set up, our purchasing policy is set up, and certainly we've went to efforts to prevent this one, and whether or not the commission determines it an emergency is your prerogative. So we've had just a combination of factors. We had a police car in the fall that caught on fire and burned, and we're getting an insurance payout to replace it, but that's a total loss in terms of the vehicle. We had another police vehicle that got in an accident and is out of service. And so that one is getting fixed, but is slow in that happening. And I'll back up even more that the commission authorized the purchase of a new police car, I think in 2022, and we just received it because there's been these huge delays in getting those specific vehicles. Couple even more items on top. We went out to bid as to avoid emergency purchases. In the fall, I think we did it twice, maybe August and September, September and November, I believe it's in there. July and October, it looks like. And we had 0 bidders for the Ford Interceptors that we have been buying. So we can get no bids. We're down 2 vehicles. We have budgeted to purchase a new vehicle, and we know that takes a long time, even if we were to order one specifically or could find somebody who wanted to bid on it. And then we would be intending to budget again in this upcoming year for another new one. So all this angst and struggle, being down vehicles, not being able to do the bidding process in any functional way, and in that investigation, I'll call it, we found a guy named Bob Evans, of all things. Yeah, he's got out of Perry there, yeah. And no, the guy, no, I just had to say that because we all laugh about it, but his name is Robert Evans. He goes by Bob, and he works at Berger Chevrolet down in Grand Rapids, and he has available that we could get now 2 Chevy Tahoes that have the police package. But it's one of those things you really kind of got to jump at because somebody else is going to buy them. Because there's departments across.
So how do you pick us?
I don't.
We got on a waiting list.
Oh, we're on a waiting list.
I'm on a waiting list.
Didn't we have a broker who did these things for us in the years past? Didn't you have a company that
We've always been able to be successful
you
in
have?
bidding. I don't think we've had a broker, not that I know of.
Have not?
We've always been able to get bidders. They've been across the state. I know we've had people in Lansing and Southeast Michigan as be our bid, but we haven't been able to do that as is evidenced this past year. I mean, as a staff, do you call it an emergency? I don't know if emergency is exactly the right word, but to be able to go to Bob Evans and
Order breakfast.
Okay, that's enough.
I'm
You've
sorry,
had
I'm
enough.
sorry. Julie's gonna be upset with me. She, to be able to jump at this opportunity,
You gotta do it.
the only way for us to functionally do it is through the emergency purchasing provisions, and, so
What
that's
color
what
are
we.
these, Heather?
idea.
Oh.
That's between Danny and Scott.
So that, Mayor, that's what I have.
Okay, questions for the administration?
I just want to understand, so we approved purchase of one, and there's two cars available, right? So I'm gonna attempt to do math here just really quick. So we approved purchase of one earlier in 2023, right? We approved purchase of one. And then, Mark, I think what I hear you saying is that we're due for another new one in 2024. And what we would like to do, rather than wait and rebid that, is buy two, and we're done for now.
You've
Is that the
got
gist
it
of it?
exactly right. I just qualify, when you say approved purchase, the commission hasn't approved any purchase. It was budgeted.
It was budgeted.
It was budgeted,
Correct.
correct.
Yep, okay, good deal.
Every wire in the burned one burned. And it looks beautiful. It looks like normal. You might want that, Carmen, for the
I just
township.
want the sticker that says Interceptor.
Is there further discussion? Is there a motion to approve the resolution authorizing emergency purchase of police vehicles?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and second. Further questions? Hearing none, that I guess requires a roll call because of money, right, Tammy?
James?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Seven?
Yes.
Epley?
Yes.
Gunther?
Yes. Tahoes. Great big.
You want them to drive Ford Fiestas or something like that?
Minis,
What's your
minis.
preferred vehicle?
You know, there was a city commissioner at one time back in the eighties who actually rode around in a police vehicle because she wanted to understand why they needed to upgrade and have different vehicles. And it worked. Take him for a ride.
I've never done anything wrong. The unscheduled business today, I'm gonna encourage people not to have any, cause we have a great presenter coming, but if you have unscheduled business, speak now or forever hold your peace. Hearing none. Anyone?
Photos
Mary?
this month, Mayor.
Yeah,
Festival of the Arts.
Well, you two board members, would you like to speak to that? You
Sure,
Florida
there is
people.
an exciting list of almost 70 events that happen every day. There's something at City Hall tomorrow. Amy Boozy's talking about her travels around the world, but there's lots of great events. I have books. Please enjoy.
Good enough?
Yes, good
Anybody
enough.
else have? Yes, please, Carmen.
I would just like to let the commission know, the city manager and the attorney, that Big Rapids Charter Township is looking forward to a fruitful and meaningful relationship with the city.
Thank you so much.
Thank
It's not always been that way,
No, it hasn't.
but thank you. Anything else? Now, we're gonna take a 5-minute break while we move to our work session location.
Whoa. Careful, you might break down.
Oh, are you ready for this, buddy boy?
That's his plan, isn't it?
Are you jealous that you can't make
You better go buy one, Brad.
I mean, do we have these tables? This is one of these tables to, is this where we're squaring it up?
Why don't we just do classroom style? We did that way up there, that's where we did a horseshoe.
Got it. We need to go on that side.
I don't know how they drive.
Is this where we want to?
Don't trip over the.
No, I walked Mount Pleasant a few weeks ago.
I'm just gonna put my camera on.
I'm not gonna.
I'm gonna,
So it's like,
We got time.
Okay, just wanted to check.
there's no adherence to secret.
Steve.
oh, nice to meet you, Scott.
Yeah, this is Steve.
I'm the one sometimes that.
Yeah. What's your room? It's Monday.
My numbers are
I
in
am
order.
in the right spot, right? I'm in the right spot.
You wanna use the podium?
You're.
Yeah, I might wanna do that.
Yeah. She's got Alexa.
We're all gonna fit.
Oh, hey,
Sit here.
never say that.
Too.
Just sit here and go back and forth between the two.
Yep.
Where are we going?
I don't,
Uh,
he only wants a horseshoe and not a square.
So we're
That's why we're
right here.
all right, you're listening.
Not as bad a guy as.
Oh,
I don't look on Facebook.
I don't either.
Or it-
Pull another chair.
I'll wait for each of you what they say
And I
about.
get
Doesn't want a square.
I know, I helped her set it up today. She was getting all.
Oh, you do?
Comfortable chair. I'm just gonna sit right here. You want a chair? Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm on.
He doesn't look too happy. We're gonna shove her over.
Is this an art meeting? It'll be 1 minute, we have some restroom.
Yeah, sure. You guys participating?
Can I grab one of those from you?
Yeah.
Is that the same as this?
Sorry, I missed, no.
No, there we
This is
go.
her special.
Oh, perfect.
This is my son.
Got some small font on here, doesn't it?
Approving how much more that you need bifocal.
That he's refusing to.
You gotta give in one of these days. Mayor said,
He hands stuff to me, he goes, oh, my eyes are dry today.
yeah, it's like, oh, where are the eye drops? Carla knows what I'm talking about. You can sympathize, right?
Training. Like 3 days. Afternoon. Not gonna wait.
Are you partnering with Marcy for training, or are you doing,
I always do my own part, she's doing training for the new people. She does training when we have new people to get certificates. And I always train before every election. Yeah. She's doing it on the third.
I'm just doing it.
Or this is meet 'em up or whatever else you wanna go.
We have room on the side of the table. There's room if you wanna,
Room.
enough room.
Right, yeah.
Call us back to order, we're all here, are we, Mark?
I believe we're here.
When I was at the Michigan Association of Mayors meeting in Frankenmuth, which was the best one I've been to, I mean, all the speakers were top notch. One of the top notch speakers was Miss Julie. She is a professional parliamentarian, is that the right thing, Julie?
Sure.
And she, when I talked to her, she said
Call me late for supper.
there's a parliamentarian in each region and she'll get us one and they'll come and,
No, that's not true.
well, did you say that?
No.
You wouldn't be going here, you told me, no, I'm not going there. So anyway,
Oh, my
I
gosh.
guess she's,
The only reason I'm correcting you is that lately, there's been a lot of requests for parliamentarians, and there's not a PRPs of what my credential is. There's not a lot of us, and they're mostly in Detroit area, Flint.
and not up in.
So to get them over here is,
I
so
see.
you're talking to me.
So tell us what that is exactly,
Yeah.
how you,
But I also work for MSU Extension, and so we do have extension individuals who know parliamentary procedure and teach it. That may be the regional thing, but so it's a mix of both for me. I'm a PRP for Association of Parliamentarians, and also I work for Extension. But I'm an administrator for Extension, so I don't teach so much anymore. So anyway, so to correct you, Fred, right?
thank you for that.
That's, wasn't necessarily all that, but it may not be easy.
It was a good talk, so she could
Whatever,
just
let's
talk.
get my voice in the room, right? Yeah. So you had a good talk at the, and go on, keep
I'm
going
finished,
on.
I'm finished.
And why you-
Introducing.
So you invited me to come because,
Well,
I'll let you
I
finish your
don't
story.
think many of us had any use of Robert's rules since high school. That'd be my guess. And then we all faked it at meetings for about 30 years. And there truly is, as you explained, reasons for everything, and I thought, on up and talk to us.
Okay. Yeah, so you ran your meeting well, from what I saw. Your minutes were adopted easily with, no comments, and the way you said it was very good, and so, so I think you're probably doing better than you think. So I guess I'd like to know, what your snags are, what you'd like to talk about. I do have a PowerPoint that keeps me focused. It is pretty much what I presented up at the conference. So if you want me to go through that, it does talk about the principles of parliamentary procedure that helps you understand why, which, why you're doing what you're doing and what it's all about. But I guess to start out, why don't you tell me what is on your mind, where you feel that the snags are with the board and your own personal confidence in using proper parliamentary procedure in your meetings, and then I can make sure I talk about that.
We get hung up on tabling versus something else,
Okay,
which was helpful when you explained it.
okay,
But they haven't heard that spiel. I
Okay.
thought that was
okay. We'll make sure we
and
talk about that.
second versus support,
Okay.
something I had never thought of. That was worth.
All those little tidbits.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Anybody else have something that they want to make sure we talk about? And then tell me how much time I have now that it's 7:30.
You're it. We're adjourning after you're finished, so.
Okay, so if you all start.
10 minutes or 5 minutes?
I can go till 11, I can sleep, right? No, I'll start hallucinating, don't worry.
Really covering motions for reconsideration too, I think would be helpful.
Oh heavens, we don't have to talk about that.
That whole section at the back about which motion has precedent over other motions.
Yeah, well, in a
I've never
small
run
board.
into all those.
Yeah, in a small board, I'm not even sure if reconsideration is necessary, but I will talk about the difference between reconsider and reconsideration. How's that? I know where you're going with that, but reconsider is one of the largest chapters in here, and so I'm like, really? You wanna talk about that? Cause I don't. But I understand what you're asking me, and I will make sure
Awesome.
yeah, okay.
Is reconsidering like who can bring up
Yeah, so
after it's voted down?
yeah,
Or, yeah.
no, not after it's voted down, so let me
Okay.
talk about that.
That-
So,
That's a different thing. Maybe.
so can your board change your mind?
Right. That's where I was
Do
going.
you think you can?
Sure.
I would hope so.
Should be able to, right? And what would life be if we couldn't change our minds? And so, in a meeting, you can reconsider a vote that you just made. The treasurer, you realize you don't have enough money. Oh man, we can't do that. We've got to reconsider the vote. So you can do that in the same meeting. A person who voted on the prevailing side can bring that back up again, right? So that makes sense. You
The
can't
winner
have
or the loser?
the prevailing
Prevailing.
side.
That like the prevailing motion?
Prevailing side, if a vote was failed, someone who voted no. If a vote was
I see. I
approved,
gotcha.
someone who
Just
voted
took me a
yes,
while to
because you
figure
may vote no to something and then realize later in the meeting, whoops, we should have voted yes on it. Maybe you realize you have enough money. So that's what I mean by the prevailing side. So somebody on the prevailing side can bring that motion back up for reconsideration in the very same meeting. And you can even make it, if you don't have time to get to it, you can bring it back up for reconsideration in that same meeting and say, I wanna reconsider this at the next meeting. You can give notice to reconsidering something. But again, it has to be that person on the prevailing side. Particularly if it was a no vote, you wanna make sure it's back on that agenda next time so that you can rediscuss it and maybe convince everyone to vote yes this time, if you voted on the prevailing side. So that's what reconsideration is in a meeting. And most motions can be reconsidered. Now, some boards make a rule that says you can reconsider in the next session, in the next meeting. You actually have one of your rules that say a motion can come back. But again, it would be by the person on the prevailing side. So you can extend that. I know some small or small boards will do that in their standing rules that will say you can reconsider a motion. Now, clearly, you can't reconsider something that's already, so that's where it gets technical of extending it on to another meeting would be you can't, if the contract has been already let, you can't reconsider that. Or So likewise, so contrast reconsider, which is something you can do in a meeting, the same meeting, to rescind something or amend something previously adopted. That's another way that a board changes their mind, and that happens in a subsequent meeting. You messed up, you need to rescind something, you need to even rescind an old ordinance or something, right? So you can do that, and any member can move to rescind or amend something previously adopted at a later meeting. Something that hasn't been started, or a portion of something. So if you let the contract, but only half of it happened, and you wanna rescind that contract, you can only rescind, obviously, the part that hasn't been enacted upon. It's clear you have an active manager, and he's gonna get to work the next day on all your decisions, right? So that's the difference between a reconsideration at a meeting and then rescind or amend something previously adopted, which are all ways you can change your mind.
When you rescind, you don't have to use the prevailing.
No.
It's anybody could do that.
So contrast that all to voting no on something, something fails in a meeting. So you have and I'm saying this just because it's been coming up, and I don't think this presentation has that particular slide in it that just specifically talks about this issue. What happens when you vote, a motion fails? What happens to that issue? Fails. Yeah, it fails, right? You're not gonna do it, right? So, but what if you decide that you want to bring that back to the board 2 months from now? Can you?
You can do motion.
Yeah, you can. You can bring something back. Because things have changed. So with the passage of time is enough to say something's changed, that a motion can be what's called renewed and come back. Maybe you only had 4 members of a 5-member board were present. So you want to bring it back the very next meeting, the vote may change. Maybe it was a 2-2. It's going to be a 3-2, right? The situation's changed because the members present are different. So you can always bring something back, except, I don't know, you don't have your name tag, so I can't pick on you.
I almost brought mine.
Fred.
I'm Fred, yeah.
You. Fred continues to bring this motion back over and over and over again. Clearly, it's not gonna pass, Fred. That's not allowed.
You disallow it, so you.
Yeah, it's not, you just don't entertain it. Fred, we've talked about it 3 times, it's brought it back 3 times, we gave you 2 chances, 3 strikes, you're out. We're not talking about that again. Until you can come up with some better reasons, or until situation has changed. But right now, Fred, the situation has been the same.
Can the chair ever make a motion?
Don't jump on me, wait a minute. On this one still. That's a different question. So anyway, yes, you can bring things back. So it's just, of late, it seems like I keep getting that question, so I don't know if it was on your mind.
Is 3 the cutoff point, or is it a cutoff point to be determined by the board?
You what?
You bring it back 3 times and it fails.
Oh, no, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
No, there's no, if it's dilatory is the word. What? Okay, actually, Google word of the day told me it was dilatory. Dilatory. You know that word?
Dilatory?
You say dilatory?
That's what I say.
Me too, right? And so I listened to it. I wanted to hear what it said. You get those? Your Gmail? Words of the day?
Don't trust Google.
It's a dilatory. Dilatory? Yeah, I guess the I would be I. So if it's dilatory, which means a waste of time, right? Waste of time, fruitless, a cause for distraction. I think that's what the word said. But anyway, that's so and that would be deemed dilatory by the group. You would know. you know that troublemaker.
It would have to have support from the board, essentially.
Yeah.
General consensus.
Correct.
of-
If a person wants to bring a motion back, what does it need? It needs a second, right? So that means more than one person wants to talk about it.
One of the things we've tripped up, not recently, but in the past on, was our previous city attorney, I don't know if Brad feels this way or not, always told us that the motion or the resolutions had to be, written in the affirmative.
Sure.
So there's every rare time that you'll be voting yes, but that means it fails.
Okay.
Or if you vote no, that means it's approved.
Well, that if you're writing them in the affirmative.
Well, we've run into
Oh,
this.
yeah.
I don't have a good example.
No, that's the slide I don't have in here, I think, too, because I realized that I gave this one City of South Haven and it wasn't. Yeah, see, look, there it says City of South Haven. I knew I didn't change it all. I apologize. No, I'm going all the way through this. I don't think it's in there. So just don't get dizzy. I'm gonna go all the way back. So let's play that out a minute.
Zoning thing is.
Yeah, no. So here's how, I was gonna say, contrast that with your zoning board of appeals. No, your zoning board of appeals is different. So your zoning board of appeals is we approve the request, yes. We deny the request, yes. Because you know which way you're going with the ZBA, typically. So your ZBA, your minutes are different, the whole thing. If it's not in the minutes, it didn't happen. Whereas typical minutes are only what was done, not what was said, right? So if you look at your administrative boards like that, you don't want, it's a little bit different. But I use that as an example. So if you say, we want to, I move to invite the governor to our next meeting. That's positive. I move that we do not invite the governor to the next meeting. Very confusing. Yes would mean you didn't want to do it. If you're gonna say you didn't want to do something, why are you even talking about it? Unless you need to put it on the record that you don't want to invite the governor to the next meeting. Okay, there's no reason to even bring it up. She's not invited. She never was invited, so it's you want to put it in the affirmative. However, we want to invite the governor to the next meeting may not be the will of the board, and you're going to find out by putting it out there. It's either going to be, it's going to say yes with a majority, or no, it's going to fail. But you tried it, right? As opposed to, we move to deny the invitation. I move that we deny the governor's invitation, the governor's request to come to the next meeting. I move to deny. So deny, what's the affirmative? Yes, we deny it. It's in there. So if you want a negative motion, you want it to have the word in there to be an action in the motion. So tell me your confusion after that, because yes means yes.
I always
no
think I
means
understand it until they come up and I'm like,
No, yes means yes, and no means no. I move that we deny the request of the applicant. Yes, we deny
I
it.
never used the word deny, that's the problem.
That's the problem.
right, I think
Yes means
that's,
yes.
I think it's the way we've written them, it's been a problem.
It's always been, we approve, even though their board, say Park or Rec or zoning or planning,
Right.
recommend not to do it.
Yeah.
So we want the,
So you want to adopt the,
we don't wanna do
you're going to
it.
adopt the
Yeah, we
recommendation.
put it in as the approve, we approve.
Yes,
we-
he's right.
Motion to adopt the recommendation.
Motion to adopt the recommendation, which is no, right? So you're gonna the affirmative is to adopt the recommendation of the planning commission, all right?
That's my yes
We don't
means
use the
no
word deny.
thing.
I recommend, but read on, because when you're dealing with planning commissions and ZBA, you gotta have a lot of text there,
Yeah.
right? If it's not there, it didn't happen. So read on, the recommendation is to not approve this, is to deny the zoning or deny the special use permit or whatever they're talking about. So I'm on the ZBA, so we always focus on, because when with the ZBA itself, which you don't have to get into the ZBA's rulings, right? But the ZBA, the applicant comes obviously for us to prove it, and then we have to go through our criteria. And in our verbiage of the criteria, we say, well, it doesn't mean that one, it doesn't mean that one, it doesn't meet that one. The motion is to deny. So,
It's helpful. I think we've worded them wrong in the past.
yeah, always think in your mind, yes means yes and no means no. And if you don't want the city council to adopt the recommendation, then use the word deny. We will thereby deny the special use permit, and based on these reasons, right? You have to have the reasons. That's for your attorney to have you in court if you're not stating the reasons why you're denying an applicant's application, right? What's that?
One way to get an appeal in court is don't give your reasons.
Yeah, you gotta, and whereas you all in your minutes, so that was a little aside, but also good for you, right? So, well, yes means yes and no means no. Even when it might be silly, right? That's what you're saying. That's good. Why are we having it when it's really clearly, and so you just change that verbiage. All right, so anything else before I'll buzz through those things when they're on here? Okay, we're done. 10 minutes, we're done. All right, so I heard. So I'll just go through my slides real quickly, and we'll stop when we have questions. Just say hey, okay? And so I'll just do this. So no government by bluff, and sounds like from the township supervisor who was here earlier that there might be a township nearby that's doing this a little bit. They really don't know what's going on. He suggested they might need some help, but you got to know the law.
He went home.
Yeah. Well, he said it. It wasn't his township. But so the rules are important to understand, and I printed out. I got a copy of your. Now you did get this presentation and the handout, right?
Yes.
So and I apologize where it still says South Haven. I wanted to get that quickly out, and I was not at home. So, yeah. So no government by bluff, but we'll get there. Okay, so whose job is it to make your meetings go well? It's Fred's job, right? 100%. Right? 100% Fred's job? No, it's not. You're right. It's not 100%. But we rely on him for a lot. And I know that in your city, you also rely on your city manager a lot. And so they, and your staff and your clerk and the whole team. And so it's everybody that is responsible for making a good meeting. And so I would, if you think of a circle, again, this slide's not in here. Sorry, I didn't update how I wanted to. So your circle's in the middle. I would say the city manager's in the middle. He's the hub, right? And then there's spokes going out to everybody, to council, to the mayor, to the clerk, to the treasurer, to all his team, right? And he keeps things rolling. And so together, he makes the agenda together with, maybe Fred takes a look at it, the clerk takes a look, or if there's things bringing on, they prepares that agenda. And then, but it's up to you all to kind of participate in the discussions and also feed into the process while you're not having meetings, right? You're gonna all have roles to play and assignments. If it's just reading your packet, right? There's still an assignment to make an efficient meeting. So the mayor's job is to run the meeting. No bluffing on his part. Protect the rights of members is highlighted there. So when he knows that there's a rule that should be being followed here and it's not being followed, it's up to him to say, hey, wait a minute, that's against the rules. That's not how we do things. It's city charter, Roberts, whatever it is. Encourage input, mediate conflict, be professional. That's all part of what we expect of our leader. Now, were you, Fred, elected as mayor? So it's a separate seat. So the city doesn't know if he's a good leader or not, right? He's just popular.
Yes.
Right? So he needs help because he may not have all these skills, but that's what he needs to be working towards. And you as members need to help him and coach him and help with that. And then there's the council members, right? You're supposed to show up, and that's really important to make a quorum so you can get work done. Quorum, right, is a number of people that need to be here to do business. You need to be prepared. You need to participate, and we're not on TV, right?
We're on YouTube.
YouTube, do you call that TV?
Okay, well, there's a could be 1 million people watching us right now. And they're watching you.
Yeah, there's not.
But on that dais, after the fact, right? It's really hard.
Do we have even one person watching us right now?
Oh, perfect. It's really hard to deliberate in front of a crowd, and you got to be confident in your being informed and the conversations, the questions you ask the city manager one by one in advance to be prepared for good deliberations. It's hard to disagree in public, but you may disagree, and you want to raise questions, and so you just have to be confident. But that's what the citizens expect of you. When you come in and it's yes, 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 well, they must be doing something behind closed doors, because how can they all be happy and agreeing? Well, little do they know that your city manager is giving you really good information in your packets, etc. But you need to be there to deliberate, and that's really important. And then the public has a role because of your meetings interface with the Open Meetings Act, right? You're a public policy body. So you have adopted rules for public comment. You allow them 3 minutes, 2 minutes, whatever you do, a couple times on the agenda. So that's really important. They need to be reminded of the rules from time to time. Hopefully you haven't had tons of controversy, but you certainly are welcome to change those rules as needed if you have to, given issues, or change the venue or that kind of thing, making sure people are comfortable and have an opportunity to speak. That's part of their job of making your meetings effective, right? That's the last thing you want to do is have us come in and say, well, they weren't listening, or they didn't let us in, or something like that.
It's good about that. They actually adopt the rules of procedure every year, so they go.
Yep. Yep, that's great, so that they can see what they are and make sure they're happy with that. They don't want to change it, too. Good, yep. So Robert's Rules is the common parliamentary authority, and there's a whole chapter on small boards, whereby small board rules can be a little less formal. I do find, though, that city councils and townships and some county commissioners that are only 5 members prefer to have that air of formality, because there are, it is a elevated role. You're elected by the citizens to make life better for them. So you don't just call each other by name, or you still have a second. Robert says that you don't need seconds to motions and things like that, and so that gets a little bit too informal for legislative bodies. But if you are on other boards, however, you have your agenda, or your looks like nicely organized, where you can actually have some free flow conversation. At least I heard you doing that. You hear a report from the city manager, from the treasurer, and then you say, "Is there a motion?" And so a motion is then said by the board, and then you discuss it again if you needed to. So that is helpful and a good give and take, and how a small board functions well. If you're in a large group, if you had 13 members, that might not be the case. But with a small group, you can have that nice dialogue back and forth. Likewise, in a small board, you don't want it to get out of control, but you might not be real strict on one person only talking once until everyone wants to speak. The rule of debate is that you do that one person, and then everybody speaks who wishes to, and then people get a second chance. But in small boards, sometimes you do that little banter, keeping in mind that you're supposed to talk through the chair, and the chair can pull it back at any time if need be. But in a small group, I'm not sure, I didn't hear you do much of that, but if it gets out of control, the chair takes it back.
Is there a procedure for the chair if he needs to, like if a member of the public is becoming disruptive?
The public?
Is it the procedure for how, is there a set rule in Robert's Rules as to how you go about
No,
it?
because Roberts talks about the deliberative process with the board. So the interface between the board and the public is really the OMA, or free speech, or the federal state constitution. But how Fred handles that should be consistent. You do have meeting groupies that come, and you know them by name, and that's wonderful. And there is a police officer around the corner. Good,
Probably bored.
So consistency is really key, and so if you, instead of 2, you have 100 in the room, you need to keep strict rules. You may wanna change your time limits, allowing members only to speak when they're supposed to, and if it gets unruly, ask them to leave. You can ask a member to leave, you can't have them leave forever, they are allowed back in the next time, that's the Open Meetings Act. But Roberts doesn't talk about that, so that's kinda in your place, so.
Dealt with it in the rules of procedure, but I just wondered if there.
Yeah, no, not in Roberts, yeah. So, really apologize for that saying South Haven, I realized that on the way up here that it probably did, it should say Big Rapids. So we have rules, and that's what I wanted to we have Robert's Rules of Order as a parliamentary authority, but you have a lot of rules that you have to abide by. The hierarchy of rules for the Big Rapids City Commission are first, federal rules, right? And what federal rules might affect your meetings?
Open meetings?
Federal.
Constitution.
Yeah, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, that kind of thing, right? So you could get in trouble if you, or ADA, American Disabilities Act, you have to be in a place, right? So those kind of affect you. And then a state law would be Open Meetings Act, right? And then you have your charter, you have your city charter, how many have read it, looked at it, have it bookmarked, right? It's full of great information. And then you also have your ordinances that you might have adopted. And you also have your board rules that I got a copy of. And this is what they review each year, which is really good. Your rules of procedure for conducting meetings, this is really good stuff. And a little bit, some of this is not the same as Roberts, but that's okay because you're a small board. And then you have the parliamentary authority. So none of these lower rules can violate or usurp any of the higher order rules. So, like, for example, you just asked me about the interface between the board and the public. I don't know, you tell me, because I'm here to talk about your parliamentary authority. There are rules over that, like your board rules that govern that process. And then, of course, the Open Meetings Act, which governs that. So none of the lower order rules can violate a higher order rule. People will ask me questions and I won't say the answer, like who emailed me the agenda question? Yeah, so the agenda question, well, I didn't have your stuff right in front of me, but I wanted to get to you with an answer, so I hope it wasn't too confusing. But that, I didn't know. I needed to know your process. You tell me what the answer is, because there is a process to amend and adopt agendas, but tell me what your other rules say first, and then I'll tell you what Robert says about it. Because if you don't have a rule, then we go to your parliamentary authority. That's the rules that govern everything else not covered by the other rules.
So our city charter says the city manager prepares the agenda.
Yeah,
It's not the chairman, it's not the commissioners. But then the controversy arises when a commissioner will go to Mark and say, I want this on the agenda. Now, does he have to put what they want on the agenda, or does he have to wait till 2 commissioners?
Who signs
do
his
it?
contract? Who signs his contract? Who pays his salary, right? I mean, does he have to? I mean, that's up to the commission, right? You're gonna tell, so it is on your process, just to kind of jump into that. It says items not being considered as part of the regular meeting agenda may be added with unanimous consent of the members present. And that's for unscheduled business. So the item above that, though, says everything's supposed to be here by Tuesday, gives you all time, and then the order on the agenda is determined by him prior to giving to the items with presentations. So you are kind of missing a step there a little bit to say items may. So that's all it says, right? So you tell me what's missing to have clarity, because I think that's what's really important about agenda development. The agenda, for an agenda that's sent out, according to Roberts, an agenda that's sent out, as long as you don't violate your order of business, which is defined, you have your order of business of how things will come, but the agenda are sort of the items underneath it, right? Is a draft, is a plan, it's like an idea. So then when it arrives to your meeting, members can amend it. Otherwise, why do you even have approval of it on your agenda in the first place? You're offering an opportunity to change the agenda because it is just an idea. Now, if you strictly enforced nothing will be added of business and stuck to it. You know, you could suspend your rules if something emergency came up. You can always suspend a standing rule, but that would really limit you probably a little bit. I don't know, do you often have things,
Can we get an example
an idea of something?
of something that's? Because I can't think of a time I've asked Mark to put something on the agenda without talking to all the other members.
So it happens at the meeting, right? Like
We
you're
have our
gonna.
one-on-one meetings.
Okay,
So we have our one-on-one meetings, but usually it comes about as a study session or a work session.
And then it kinda goes over into the agenda, right?
Well, but what I try to do is make sure I email all of the commission members.
And you're who? You are on the council? Yeah. So you shouldn't.
Individually.
Yeah.
Going to jail now.
Either individual emails, or what I actually like to do is call them.
Yeah. So you
And
call
talk
and
about
you
it,
say,
but
hey, I'm thinking about, we really ought to be talking about
Yes.
that mailbox over on Fifth Street. I'd like to bring it up in the agenda. Would you be okay with that? Yes. And then you call the next person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to, what do you think? Better would be talk to the city manager, hey, you know, I know this is gonna really bug you, but we really gotta talk about that mailbox on Fifth Street. And you'll say, you know what, you're right, let's put it on the agenda, you know?
So what's this round robin stuff versus among the council members?
What,
You gotta be careful,
You can't-
that if you
you
call
can't
that person, they call
deliberate.
that person, they do that person.
Well,
Pretty soon they got a round robin going and
All
it's
right,
illegal.
so we're back to the Open Meetings Act. And so that is, you don't wanna deliver, you have to do all your deliberation from that dais. All of it. So I'm on a library board, okay, and I just got one this morning. I reply all. This one gal last week said we should buy this painting. I didn't look at it, whatever. We should buy this painting. This morning, then Sherry, the president, says, Katie, you must know something about that painting. I don't know if it would be good for the historical room. And I'm like, whoa, that's deliberation, Sherry. Well, I can't believe she did that. Of course, I didn't participate. And I didn't have a chance because it was library work, not work, whatever. So I just didn't let it go. But my response was going to be, no, reply all. And that was going to be my response, right? Sherry starts delivering. Katie can bring the purchase of the painting to the agenda, to the meeting. And then we're gonna talk about it, how Katie knows it, should we buy it, blah, blah, blah. So round robin now, Katie could have called everyone. I think we should buy this painting, I'm gonna send you the link. I don't know if that's round robin, that's just asking everybody, but why, just bring it to the meeting. So what was your question about round robin?
You answered it.
All right, good.
Got it.
And you tell me if I'm saying anything you don't follow.
And with regard to the agenda, I mean, you always, because it's an agenda item, on the approval of the agenda is right at the top. If for whatever reason, something's not on there that you want on there as a member of the commission, just raise it as a motion at the meeting.
Yeah.
To amend the agenda to add whatever item you want to talk about.
Have every right to do that.
So does it take a vote of anybody, or
Yes.
can one commissioner
No,
allow it
it's-
to be
no.
placed on the
So you-
agenda?
No, your agenda, act as if it's one, it's gonna be adopted all at once, the agenda, okay? But by amendment, I'd like to amend the agenda, and by a majority, you can amend the agenda.
So it takes a majority vote of
To
the,
amend the agenda, right? So a majority vote, and then, once that's done, then you adopt the whole thing again. You say, okay, here we have, and I liked how you did it. There was no changes, and you said, okay, we're good to go. You didn't.
whenever there's changes, I get all goofed up.
Well, but you just do the same thing, really, because you didn't really take a motion to adopt it, because it was before you, and I liked that. It's like, oh, I hate when they take these, you know, if it's there, it's there. It's all, we're all good with it, unanimous consent. And unanimous consent is written all the way through your city charter and your board rules, so it allows you to take unanimous consent. What is unanimous consent? Does it mean you all agree? No. What does it mean?
No objection?
No objections, perfectly. It just means nobody objects, and that's the key to that, which is really
Because
important.
we don't do a consent agenda here at all.
No, don't get confused. The consent agenda, that's a tool of an agenda process where you would vote on a bunch of stuff all with one vote. There'd be 5 items, planning commission approval, blah, 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 minutes with one vote. I'm talking about unanimous consent, which is where you say, is there any objections? Or does anybody have any changes to the agenda? No changes? Perfect, we're good to go. That basically was unanimous consent. that. You heard no objections, no changes, no nothing.
What I'm hearing you say that you wouldn't even need to do a motion to amend the agenda, you could just put it out there as, you know, so-and-so's recommended that we add this to the agenda, any objections?
Correct.
If there's no objections, then it's added.
Correct. Anytime that that seems like it's easy, and now, what if someone objects? And you take a vote.
Sometimes, we do have, like, if we write a lot of resolutions. And say a figure in a resolution is incorrect. I will redraft the resolution, send it out to everybody, and then that's really a change to the agenda. We have this change.
Say it, yeah.
Yeah, but the agenda, okay, because the agenda says the resolution related to water bills, right? The actual document you sent out, the actual resolution
Hasn't changed.
hasn't, the agenda hasn't changed. You're still gonna talk about it. So that's really just the packet.
Resolution has.
Yeah, the resolution, the packet has, and so you wanna make sure that they see that you've sent out a corrected version of it, and make sure that they have a minute to read section 2. Make sure, because maybe they read it before.
Sometimes last minute, we might have to add something very last minute. Like say the state of Michigan is really good at this. We get contracts last minute, we have to have them by next week. This is added to the agenda.
Sure, and so, like, that's why your question was, should you add it on the fly or just reprint a new one? I think you just need to make it clear, this is not the same agenda we sent out on Wednesday. This is a new agenda, make sure all the commissioners see that it's changed. Yeah, so.
And by Friday, sometimes, you know, we have it where, say Monday, Friday is when I did the packet. Everybody sent the agenda, it's sent out to the public, it's all out. To me, I think to me, in my mind, it's finalized at that point.
Right.
And then on Monday, it's like, oh man, we need to take something off, or we need to add it, you know, and
Yes, you do that at the meeting.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
what.
I mean, right, I think she would do that at the meeting, because you say, okay, I suggest we remove this item, where the manager's not ready to talk about it yet, strike that one, any objection, no objection, we will strike that item.
So the
So,
public doesn't.
so Mark can't just do it Monday morning by himself. If somebody says, we're not ready for that,
Well-
one of his people say, we're not ready for
Well,
that.
he could, but it's just, why bother? He could.
Meeting.
Pardon?
You have to let the public know.
Yeah.
Because the one I just sent out has it on there.
That's right, and someone might have shown up for that.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah, I think, because again, you have that.
Strike it at the meeting.
Strike it at the meeting, yeah, say we have that, make that announcement, you know, even if you printed new ones or whatever, but I don't know your packets, if they're electronic, no, you didn't have that, but,
Send them out electronically.
On Friday.
yeah.
It's an interesting one.
Tammy could come in on Sunday and really put it right, so we don't have it.
But I think the bigger issue that comes up with boards is, can a member bring something up and add it, right? I think you trust your staff to take it on and off at will, because they need to, they're not ready, whatever, right? More paperwork, whatever needs to be done. The bigger issue is, can any one council member add something? And they ought to have a voice, and
But
yes,
at the meeting.
correct. Or unless it's by Tuesday, which is what your rules say. By Tuesday, get it to, and then the manager might talk you off the ledge to say, you know, you don't wanna talk about that next week, right? That's what he's.
I'm trying to think, we just did one, with the travel policy. How did that play out?
I talked to you when we met, and I said I would like some more time to look at this, cause I had some questions. And so at the meeting, when we started, and he asked if there were any changes to the agenda.
We just said it was
He
off.
said Commissioner James would like this to come off because she wants to have more time to review it. Does anybody have any objections? You asked that, and
At the meeting you did.
at the meeting. this was
Yeah, I
all-
think we did it right.
Yeah, I think we did
So you
it
don't have
right.
to vote, you just ask any objections.
And
right?
nobody had any, so it was just taken off.
Okay.
and-
Correct.
So we did it okay.
Yep, and it,
So you only have to vote if there is an objection.
yeah,
That'll be-
otherwise, cause, yeah,
Touch on forms of voting in general. The
Yeah, I
city
will.
uses roll call voting for most things.
yeah, which is, you know, you might as well, right? But anyway,
Only 5
okay, and your board rules, you've got your board rules, so I really won't go, and we won't talk about consent calendar, cause you don't do that. Minutes, we talked about that a little bit, technically what was done, not what was said, but be mindful that if you're sitting on your ZBA or planning commissions, that those are very different. So I just wanna make sure you note that. We talked about that. So this is the principles, the why. And so I go through these because you may think, to understand the process, why there's a second, why there's a quorum, why? Well, there's basic parliamentary principles. And so we'll just go through them, and if you're violating them, usually if you feel bad about something, some process, or the next morning you think, oh, that wasn't quite right, it's probably you violated one of these principles. So the organization is paramount. What does that mean to you?
City comes first.
Yes, the city comes first, and then that for who's second? You, right? So if you come in, we say people come in with agendas, right, or things like that. And when you look at boards that are dysfunctional, I'm going to assume you guys are super functional. You look at dysfunctional groups, it's probably because you have outspoken members who just are kind of pushing issues, right, that may or may not be best for the community. And so they're not really thinking about their community as the reason they're serving, right, the oath of office that they took. So organization is paramount. That usually is the problem, that they're not putting the organization first, because you're here to do the city work. Otherwise, you're not here. You're doing something else. All members have equal rights. And what are the two rights that I'm talking about here? Vote, speak. Voting and speaking. So all members have equal rights. Now the chair on a small board talks. A township board of like 5, the township supervisor usually like knows everything. Township supervisor usually is like the manager, right? So kind of has to talk all the time. So it's a little bit different with governing boards. When you are on like your church board or even Rotary or something like that, the chair may not speak. The chair really does need to maintain that neutrality. Now, mind you, the chair of this group also the mayor does need to maintain his neutrality. If he disagrees with an issue, he still has to speak for it if the board is for it, right? So there is still this really important need to do that. So the chair speaking in debate may modify his speech because he does have a right to speak on this board. He represents a constituency, the entire city. So needs to meet that a little bit. But I did notice that in your board rules, I think it was in the board rules, said that the chair decides ties. It actually says that. And it didn't say tie though. It said some words and I thought, oh, okay. So the chair decides, so the chair votes if his vote will make a difference in the outcome. And it kind of says that. And I read it and I thought, well, that might be confusing and it looks like the chair would be able to vote twice. Would someone ever be able to vote twice? No.
We don't, the chair, he always votes on every issue.
Yeah, because you're elected and you need to vote. But you go last?
No.
It's
I know when Tammy
alphabetical.
calls my name.
It's
She votes.
alphabetical. I think it describes it being alphabetical and then each time it changes. So
Yeah, she changed, she
who has to go
rotated.
first, it rotates each time. So, yeah, so that's appropriate.
That's all good?
It's very appropriate with a small city council, absolutely. Anyway, all members have equal rights, so the chair has no less or greater than anyone else, is my point to all that. An established number of people have to be here. What is your quorum? That's a quorum. What is the quorum? It means you can have a meeting. So it's 3, right? 3, because it's a majority, that's pretty same, all government in the state is a majority of the board. However, your rules do say that you have to have at least 4 votes on some things. Yeah, and I think money.
Yeah, financial too.
Money too. So,
Emergency purchase required 4 votes.
Yeah.
Doesn't say
good thing they had it. Yeah. So you would look to
was
your
on top of
attorney. He was like, good for you. Good for you. Yeah, so 4 votes. So even though only 3 have to show up, so if only 3 of you are there may be some decisions you can't make, right? And that makes sense, right? Because you're a 5-member board, right? So really that extra majority is kind of important. Because if only 3 of you are there, present at a meeting, what's a majority of 3? 2. So 2 people would be able to pass something. Because 3 people are here, that's a quorum, right? Yeah, so only one idea at a time on the table and one person can have the floor at a time. So even though you might have a motion on the table and then you have maybe an amendment or maybe something to, a motion to postpone or heaven forbid a motion to table, all the precedents, the motions, the subsidiary motions, you still only have one idea. You can have motions attached to it and process it, but there's still just one idea. So sometimes people are confused when they think that there's a motion on the floor and someone moves to amend it, that's it. They can't do any other things to it. No, there's other things you can continue to do to that. You just have to follow those through and dispose of that original idea. So we'll talk about that in a sec. Full debate is allowed on all issues unless you impose your own limits. In other words, one member can't stop the debate unless the whole group wants to stop debate. And that's often done by unanimous consent. You know, you bantering about deliberating on something for some period of time. Again, the chair may say, you know, I'm hearing us repeat ourselves. Are you ready to go? You know, that kind of thing. And again, by unanimous consent.
This is sort of like I see them on the House of Representatives when they call for yeas and nays. It says, in all cases where a non-roll call vote is taken, the presiding officer shall decide results. Any member may call for a division, and the yeas and nays shall be called upon the request of the presiding officer. We just always do roll call.
Yeah, they just always do
There's
roll
only
call.
5 of us.
I know, I know, it's hard to, yeah. Yep. But that's not what I was talking about.
Oh, okay, that's
But
what.
I like that part.
So the word decide, I think announce is probably what, announce the.
Oh, do you think it's the wrong word? Oh,
The chair doesn't decide the votes, right? The chair.
He just makes a judgment on what he heard.
oh, maybe you're right, maybe I did read that. Okay. So a majority vote decides everything, except when it's more than a majority. And so clearly in your rules, your board rules, it says that you need 4 out of 5, not 3 out of 5 to pass certain things, so that's important to know. And then if you're taking away a member's right, so if you're taking away the right to vote or the right to speak, you're gonna have a greater majority to stop debate, for example. So if someone calls the question, you would, well, your group would do it by unanimous consent maybe, but you would want at least 4 people to also agree to stop debate. But as small boards, you wouldn't do that. It was really not even in order for small boards for the previous question, but lessons.
Oh.
Go ahead.
That sounds silly.
No.
So if you wanna recuse yourself from voting,
Yeah.
as in, I'm on a separate board that could benefit from this decision, so should I really be making
Yeah.
a yay for that or a nay?
So you call the city manager, and the city manager asks the attorney and tells him your situation. Just from what you just said, I wouldn't think that that would be a legitimate use or reason to abstain or recuse yourself.
It would not.
Being on a board unless you're getting paid. But if it's a board, I know that's, I've seen it, I watched it in the city of, or in the county of Kalamazoo, having some real tough times with approving funds that are gonna go to people that are on boards, cause those people are on everything, and there's a bazillion boards. So it prevailed that the commissioner did not have to recuse herself, cause she didn't. Other members thought she should have, and it was just her board was getting the money, her group,
Well,
right?
it's my cousin's construction company.
Oh, your
Those
cousin, no, that's a good example.
Okay.
So, right, your cousin, well, is
Yeah.
that close enough? So I didn't see anything in the board rules about conflicts of interest, but there might be in there, I just didn't see it. But you might wanna add a process of how you would do that, so if it's not clearly it's your contract or your husband's or your households, thank you, your contract, you might then bring it up always, because the press are here. I always bring it up, here, I'm gonna tell you this relationship I have. And then the board can decide, they can vote yes or no if you opt to recuse yourself. But you have a counsel sitting here, so he's really helpful in that.
Always at the meeting then?
Yeah.
Or prior and then?
Oh, well,
I think. The conflict and let me know beforehand, that gives me the heads up to look.
Yeah.
To look it up, right? Yeah, because there's,
Brought up. Okay.
definitely, you want to do the research, you don't wanna throw that on somebody, you don't wanna look dumb in front of everybody, in that regard, not dumb, that was a bad choice of words. But no, I mean, you don't wanna,
The attorney looked dumb.
no, you don't wanna be unprepared because, you need to vote that night, I mean, and so, you wanna make sure that it's known in advance.
So, I went to a township meeting last
month, and it was a planning commission meeting. And they were voting on a piece of property.
I was not at the meeting.
The community development committee.
Okay.
Two of the people on the planning commission said, I want to recuse myself because my wife works for that company and somebody else. And they made them get up and leave the room.
Yeah, you need to
What the
leave the
hell's the
room.
leave in the room?
If you because you could be in the back of the room going,
Oh, really? They make them leave the room?
yeah, that's appropriate.
I've never seen somebody have to walk out to the outside.
That's appropriate. It's-
Yeah.
Or the neighbor, I'm on it, like I mentioned, the ZBA, and so my neighbor was doing something, and I sat out, I could hear him, but I sat out in the hallway and I listened.
So there you go, Mark, that's why they left the room. 'Cause
And they
might-
probably have it in
raise
your
a fuss with
bylaws,
their
right?
arms.
Or
I don't know if it's in our bylaws,
Yeah,
but
so-
I always tell my board to leave the room.
Yeah, so planning commission.
I told you that.
I know, that's right, why can't they?
Best practice
Discussion.
in the room, I've seen it though, where some people insist on being there to speak as a member of the public.
Oh, and that's really bad.
Which is bad, but yeah.
But you can leave.
That's really bad. I mean, you can't try to convince others. I mean, you can do it offline. You can go outside, go to a coffee shop and do it, but not in a board meeting. It's really bad form. It's not professional at all. But planning commissions and ZBA, planning commission particularly, it's nice to have an outline conflict of interest process in their bylaws. It's really important. And there's some samples out there if you don't have it.
On the same token, to abstain because
You don't want to vote.
That's
Get
illegal.
out of that, you're in, it's especially on planning commission, and my husband's on ours and Papa, and they just keep talking about this, it's the short-term rentals,
it's on our next
And,
agenda.
yeah, and it's like, and they just keep talking and talking and talking and talking, cause nobody wants to make the decision, and and he's just like, oh my God, they're gonna talk about it again tonight. They got another consultant, so hopefully they cleaned it up, but, I mean, it's hard, those decisions are so hard.
Seen where people just wanna do it to avoid.
Yeah, and then, so if you have a planning commissioner that is doing, you may want to reconsider reappointing someone else if they don't have a.
They don't have a choice, they have to.
There you go.
Right.
Good job, Michelle.
They don't.
Wanted to be on a board.
You took it on, and then some of the things are fun though, because then they end up with council, so they really don't have to make the final decision, right? They're just gonna make a recommendation, then it's up to you guys, and then that's even, right? Okay, so a couple more principles. Silence gives consent, which is what that unanimous consent is all about, right? If you don't object, you're okay. And what that means is you're okay with the outcome. It doesn't mean you're approving or agreeing to something. But if you're quiet, you're okay with whatever happens. That's what that means. And so that's what happens when someone abstains. And it is a right, not on your board, but in another, you're all involved in other things. Abstentions, the right to vote also means the right not to vote. You have every right to abstain. Not here, but on the Rotary or on your church.
Tell me the difference now again.
What?
Rotary board versus city commission board.
Because you take an oath, you're elected by your representatives, you oath to represent their constituents and decision-making, making policy for the city. Rotary, you could,
Just there.
it's a service job. They don't make public policy. It's the public
So there's the
interface.
difference.
Yeah, it is a difference. Unless, of course, again, the
What do you do if
hierarchy of,
somebody
hierarchy
abstains
of
to
rules.
vote? What do you do? Say, grab them by the back of the head and say, vote?
It sounds like what Michelle does.
Shame them in some appropriate manner. You say, I hear that you don't wanna vote on this, or I'm seeing that you don't wanna vote, and you know you are now, right now, non-feasance? Misfeasance.
Malfeasance?
Misfeasance or misfeasance.
Okay, not non.
Or something like that, and.
Yeah.
Misfeasance if you don't vote and you're.
I mean, if somebody did something, like when we were first elected, when you and I were first elected, looking at what our procedures were and what we could do, and I think that's, we could sanction them or something, that whatever.
So you can say, I realize you're not voting and we know we can't, hurt you, but you are violating your oath, and this is a case of misfeasance, and I'm making a note of it. And, 3 strikes, and
There's rules about misfeasance in office and statutory, but it's.
again, a higher order rule, right, misfeasance, higher order rule, state statute.
Rotary, if you don't vote, Mark makes you sing.
Yeah, right, it's just singing there.
$1.
Yeah.
$1 for a lot at Rotary.
So anyway, that's the right to vote is also a right not to vote, but not here. So, so silence gives consent. So I was gonna say, when you do abstain and you never call for abstentions, that's a real pet peeve of mine. It's a non-vote. Someone who's not voting doesn't want to be called out as not voting. On this group, yes, but in the real, other groups, no. Abstentions can sometimes make a motion fail or pass, right? So it depends on the numbers and so forth. A proposition or issue was the item under discussion, never the person who introduced it. So you may be asked, Mark, is it? By Mark to make a motion or bring it forward on the city's behalf, and you are really, think it's, you don't like it, but you do it anyway. Right, or something like that.
Just because you make the motion doesn't mean you're in favor of it.
Correct.
So don't say, I support.
Yes.
Because you don't have to support it, second it.
So you make a motion, you can't speak against it, but you can vote against it. So you can make the motion because you need to by procedure, it's your turn. Maybe you share, I don't know how you do your motions, but you can, you say just make it, you don't talk about it. Because comment goes directly next to the person who made it, gets the first right to speak, and you just say nothing. But you can always vote against it, because even if you're for it, maybe through debate, right, the whole notion of having good dialogue is you change your mind. Or an amendment is made that makes it more palatable to you, and then you're gonna vote for it, or maybe not palatable to you, so you're gonna vote against it. So let's practice making a motion. I think you guys did a good job. We'll go through the 6 steps. On this front sheet here is print. It's getting smaller because look, I see the margins are bigger. So I just ordered these. I'm like, why is this so small? So I'm not gonna blow them up. 11 by 17.
Sometimes our board packets come like that.
Yeah. So it says right here on the front, if you get your magnifying glass out, procedure for handling a main motion. And it's what's happening, what the chair says or do, and what the member says or does. So it's all here. I also have a little sheet too that, but anyway, that's all there, FYI. So first, a main motion is the business at hand. You know this. Every motion has criteria. So the main motion, can you interrupt a speaker? No, you have to be recognized by the chair. It needs a second. It's debatable, usually amendable. It needs a majority vote to pass, and it may be reconsidered in the same meeting. Yes, everything can be reconsidered. Any main motion can be reconsidered. So I point these characteristics out because then when you open up the middle of your form, you will see other motions, other than main motions, but motions that do things to the main motion, ranking motions and non-ranking motions. And you'll see the criteria there. If you look along the top, it says interrupt, second, debate, amend, vote, reconsider. So that gives you the criteria for all the motions. So that's why I show you this on my slide.
So we'll call you if something like this comes up, we'll get your cell phone number and call you. What the heck am I supposed to do now?
No, because you're gonna do it. So the main motion is in writing. I heard a lot of so moves tonight. So the made orally or in writing, I think having a nice, take a minute, take a breath. If you need to actually formulate a motion, Fred, you can say, okay, let's just stand at ease for a minute, not a recess, just stand at ease, and when you rest your names,
Just here.
Tammy, Tammy write it out. The clerk, you're taking the minutes? Yeah, Tammy, will you take a minute and write it out? We're gonna make Tammy do it. So, okay, she does. And Fred says, okay, Tammy, what have you got? And I'll say, here's what I've got. And Fred will say, okay, let me repeat that. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Is there a second? Right? So take a minute, write it down, so everybody knows what you're talking about. You don't have to rush, right? Nice and casual.
Very little motions.
Yes, they're already written out for them, right? So you're already prepared, so we don't have to talk about it too much.
Come up some though.
Especially if you want to kind of change something, or you really just had an idea for a discussion, what's the pleasure of the group, and someone says, I think we should do this tonight. So then you want to formulate that. So whether it be Tammy or another member to help Tammy or whatever, it's real important to take that time and write it out.
Some are actions adopting resolutions, but that's still a motion to adopt a
Yeah.
resolution in the packet, right? So
Right, right. That's good, and that makes your life easy,
I
doesn't it?
think where it comes up is usually unscheduled business.
Yeah.
That might be, and we talk
Sure.
about it and we agree it's a very simple thing, why don't we just
Do it
do
tonight.
it tonight?
Yeah.
I think that's our most recent
Yeah.
example.
Good, good. The maker always gets the right to speak first, so, you know, you had some banter and you decided that you're gonna make a motion, cause you're a small board, so you're gonna have, you're allowed to have a little banter about what we're doing, why we're here. And then someone finally realizes the motion and they say it, and then you go back to that person and say, okay, describe what you mean. That's how it would happen on your group. At larger groups, of course, you're gonna come to, with a board, I don't know, do any of you have conventions or things you go to for work or anything that you would see this in? Okay, so you might stand there and say, I move that we have hot fudge sundaes for dinner. And there's a second, and then where did this come from, right? So you go to, okay, go ahead, explain your motion. Well, and then you know, you get, that's the
The
logic.
person who makes the motion gets first dibs.
Correct, that's the logic of having a motion on the floor before any discussion, is that you're gonna give it right back to the person who made the motion. Right, okay. But again, this is modified for your board because you're only 5, and you get a lot of stuff from the staff, so I just wanna give you the proper. So, a member moves, and I think you did this well, I move that we adopt the filing resolution. Not, I make a motion, or a motion, it's I move, okay, it's good form. So moved, I heard a lot of this. That's because it's probably right in front of you, right? Right? But otherwise, I say, don't do this, because it's very confusing for who's ever taking the minutes. What's so moved? Or if someone's not paying attention, and they're like, not hearing it. So he says, Fred says, I'm entertaining a motion for this, and someone says, so moved. I heard it, 3 or 4 times? And that was because you saw it in front of you, correct? Everybody was clear, okay, good. So that's an appropriate use of so moved. But in general, I don't advise it. Okay, a motion is made and then someone seconds. Second, I second the motion. What does that mean?
Just wanna vote on it.
Open it for discussion. Yeah. You wanna talk about it, open it for discussion. I second means let's discuss it. So, what I was talking about, people often say support. You've heard that before? Support talking about it. Sometimes people, when they say support, and this is a real Michigan thing, they mean that they can't, they think that they cannot second a motion unless they agree with it. And that's where the support comes into play. That's not true. It just means, I wanna talk about it. So if you really hate something, you think this idea is really dumb, you wanna second it, because you wanna make sure everyone knows how you feel about it and convince them to vote no.
So the person who makes the motion can't speak out against it.
Correct.
Did you say that? That was new to me, so that's interesting. But can the person who seconds it?
Yeah, seconder owns nothing. In fact, the seconder might wanna speak against it, that's why they want it to be talked about.
Got it.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't vote on it all and it dies for lack of.
Oh, okay, now she just said something that.
Yeah. Yeah, that
So,
happened.
let's repeat what you really meant.
A second.
Sometimes you don't get a second, right?
Dies.
Okay,
A second. You said that.
I did say that. I did say that, it's small board rules, but you've not adopted small board rules.
Oh.
I'm saying, yeah, I shouldn't have said it. So, it does die. I mean, I just was reading a new book I got. Jim Slater, he's a PRP attorney, and he just wrote a book, and he actually wrote in there that it dies. I actually never say that. What I say, it never lived. So, because it doesn't go in the minutes, nothing happens to it, right? It just, it's put out there by a member, and nobody wants to talk about it. So, you know.
Rarely, but that, sometimes it happens.
Let me do what the
Rarely, but
action is.
sometimes.
Yeah, rarely, yeah, and so, in fact, that would be the appropriate thing to do if someone, like, was doing that dilatory motion that I spoke of earlier, right? You'd let someone make it and everyone just. Now, the thing about this is that, quietness, is that, what if someone made a motion, and then, another member says, you know, I don't know, I don't think we have enough money for that.
Discussing it.
You just seconded it.
Oh,
Discussing it.
Just seconded it.
interesting. Hmm?
Yeah. So, that's why.
Second.
The open discussion. Default.
Because it started discussing. So in the minutes, you know, it moved and seconded, right? Because somebody immediately started, you know, was recognized by the chair or not, just blurted it out. I think this is a really dumb idea. You know, let's let it die. Well, you just seconded it, right? So, you know, that's handling that with your own finesse when that happens. But a second is just let's discuss it. And so we put a lot of weight on the seconder. They have no authority. It doesn't belong to them. Nothing. It's just they got it out there. Right? We know that more than one person in this room wants to talk about this. Now, the way you handle your business is you kind of talk about it first. And then maybe you fine tune a little bit, right? Because you're hearing from staff. That's okay. Okay.
Tammy.
Tammy, do you have a problem with that? No, I mean, do you correct them on that from time to
I'd like to have a second, so it's because the second opens up for discussion.
I agree. And so, but they, today,
We do sometimes talk about it before we get.
yeah, just today was quick. You were trying to get the business done probably. Yeah, you do want a second.
It up yet.
Correct. You're on my good list, back on my good list. Exactly right.
You're on your
Exactly-
good list?
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, so it's moved and seconded, so the chair repeats it again. So the motion was made, someone said so moved, and it was seconded. So it's good for the chair to say it again. So the motion on the floor is to adopt the resolution related to the mailboxes on Fifth Street. At this point, once the chair states it, who does it belong to?
Person who made the motion?
He's on my bad list.
Told us that.
It can be anybody who can now.
Who does it belong to?
Chair? I'll just keep guessing.
There's only one more person.
So the motion is made, it's been seconded, so now we're gonna open it up for debate. The chair states the motion, it's been moved and seconded. Let's debate, who does it belong to?
Everyone.
The person who made the motion gets the first.
Everybody keeps saying the person.
Everyone.
All of us?
It belongs to everybody, so therefore it no longer belongs to the
Chair, I would
maker.
like to, yeah.
It would no belongs to the seconder, has no ownership. You know, there's no owner, the owner is the group. So now the groups gets to do with it what they want.
Can the person who made the motion talk bad about it now?
No, well,
You're saying ownership, you're not saying the right to speak on it, you're saying it belongs to the whole group as now it has to be dealt with by
correct.
the group.
Correct, it has to be dealt with by the group. So if someone wants to change it, amend it, they ask the group. They don't go back to the maker. Maker no longer owns it, it belongs to the group. All right, so that, a lot of people do that, they'll go, well, do you like that change?
Well, they do it all the time
Yeah,
on TV.
On TV, yeah, they do that, yeah, the bad.
That's the maker, if they want, it's a friendly amendment then, see,
Okay,
they
there's
use
nothing,
that term,
you know, that's
friendly
the thing, the
amendment.
friendly amendment, is there really a non-friendly amendment? I mean, that's the thing.
Who's not heard of a friendly amendment?
Friendly amendments, they're all friendly, we're getting along good. So a friendly amendment is not,
Suits, he's watching Suits.
yeah, suits. Okay, so friendly amendment, well, like C-SPAN and stuff like that, but remember, those aren't your rules, right? Those are the House rules, those are Jefferson's rules, they're not Robert's rules at all. And that stuff that they do is not Robert's rules, okay? So a friendly amendment is really it's a non-issue, but be mindful that you can also be friendly while you're making amendments. But it's not, there's not a Fred to Tammy exchange on how we're gonna change this, because who are we ignoring when Fred and Tammy are talking?
All the other members.
All the rest of them, right? So it's all of yours. So there's one at a time in a formal way. All right, good. So then you debate. So all debate must be German.
Really?
Okay, that was good up in Frankenmuth. It really went over.
In Frankenmuth, that went really well.
Okay, so all debate is germane, which means relevant to the point, pertinent, right? It means that we're on topic. So when a member isn't, remember we talked about everyone has a right to obey the rules. I really didn't talk about that. I'm sorry. We said that the chairman enforce the rules, but then on that slide about rules, it said that members have a right to enforcement of the rules. So this is important for your chair to know that if topic comments by members go off the rail and they're not germane, they're not relevant to the topic, it's up to the chair to say, could you please bring your comments up back on target, on track. If he doesn't do that, who does it?
Another commissioner.
Another member, right? Because you have a right to enforcement of the rules and you raise a point of order. Mr. Fred, Mr. Mayor, the member is debate is not germane to the topic. Point well taken. Tammy, bring it back.
What if the point's not well taken?
It's not well taken.
Would that be a vote to shut everybody up, or?
If the point is not well taken, that you don't agree, you think then you can kind of facilitate that process through and say, no, I think he's gonna get to the point. Just a minute. Right? I am. I went down this rabbit hole, but I'm coming back out. Here's what I'm gonna say, right? So you're gonna facilitate that.
Okay.
But if it's not well taken, and you disagree with a member who raises a point of order, they can appeal your decision.
Okay.
Okay, there's a process to take the chair down one more notch.
Don't
So-
worry, Brad knows it all.
I'm watching you
Right up here.
Got this. All right, we'll talk about appeal in a sec. So rules of debate, we've been talking about these little kind of in and out, all remarks must be addressed to and through the chair, right? So Fred's your facilitator, you're gonna talk to him. Now, again, you're a small board, so it's not, and you're sitting like spread out, it's not like you're facing each other. So, you do the best you can, but if it gets out of hand, heaven forbid you have an issue that you're not gonna agree on, right? You're arguing one member to another. That point of order, another member's gotta make it, or the chair needs to bring that apart. I must remind you, remarks need to go through me, right? I will ask the city manager to speak. I will ask the clerk to speak up. You need to take charge. So they all go through the chair. The maker of the motion is entitled to speak first. All remarks must be confined to the pending question. Member may not speak against his own motion, but may vote against it. You only can speak one time until everyone has spoken who wishes to speak, and then you can speak a second time. Again, with small boards, that can be modified quite nicely because there's not too many of you to really take up that much time. Personal comment should be avoided. No member may comment adversely on a prior act not under consideration by the board. So despite what you think about previous boards, you really aren't supposed to talk about that. It's just not good form during debate. And then it doesn't, not relevant here either, but the chair should say any opposed, any against. So if everyone is talking, you're just really excited about this, you're all in favor, the chair may say something like, all right, okay, I'm hearing 3 of you already say you're in for this. Anybody against this? Do you have any opposing views? Okay, with no opposing views, are you ready to vote? Right, to cut, this is efficiency. Now, mind you, you are on YouTube, I get it. You want your constituents to hear your point of view, but do they really have to, right? If everyone's in agreement, move on, make the decision. So the TV and the broadcasting of things have gotten a little bit, for some boards, not yours, right?
It's not an election year.
Yeah, right. So if the election year, you want to, but maybe then you're just mindful of each other's time. Okay. Okay, so then once the debate is over, okay, is there any more debate? With no more debate, the chair puts the question. He puts it back out there for the vote.
Well, you don't call the question, you put the question.
You put the questions. You're gonna say, are you ready for the vote? All those in favor of having hot fudge sundaes for dinner, say yes. Right behind Culver's. Culver's is right there. Culver's is right there on the way.
There is no such thing as calling the question.
Yes,
I
there
like
is.
to call the
I'll tell-
question.
Well, and what would you do if you called the question?
You vote on it.
Okay, so call the question is a subsidiary motion.
Once you open it up, Mayor, it all goes downhill.
And it's a pretty high ranking motion as well. We'll get there in a sec. All right, so how's the vote taken? Don't let me not talk about call the question, because that's on my slide here. How's the vote taken? By voice, rising hand, show of hands, count, ballot, unanimous consent. We've talked about that whole bunch, and you even have it written out in your rules, so that's super cool that you can allow unanimous consent. And Tammy knows how to handle it. She knows how to handle it in the
She
minutes.
doesn't like unanimous.
Well, we do it for the minutes, but that's, every resolution I do a roll call.
Yeah, you do roll call, right, good. But you do it for the minutes, and that's really progressive. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. I mean, people really fight me on that. I'm just like, really? Okay, all in favor say aye, all opposed same sign. Have you ever heard that?
Yes, and you said not to do
No,
that.
I said, why? All opposed say yes.
Yeah, it's a lot of yeses, huh?
Yeah, and people, if they wanna vote against something, they wanna say no, and they wanna say it loud, so no, right, you let them say no. But really, if you were having someone raise their hand, it would make sense, all opposed, same sign, you know, like if you're calling for a 2/3 vote or something greater than a majority, you might need to count, not in this group, I hope, but in other boards you belong to, you might need to count, or at least get an idea. I mean, a counted vote is actually something really special. Usually if it's a voice vote and there's a large group of people and the chair can't tell, or somebody calls division, I mean, I highly doubt you'd ever call division, probably doesn't need to be in there, in your 5-person meetings. But a division means you're unsure what it was, who had it, yes or no, that's what that means. So division is a rising vote, and a rising vote just means you need to have at least some sort of gesture where you can sort of see, but it's not yet accounted. I mean, you may have to count, sort of, but if you call for a counted vote, that's kind of special because the count goes in the minutes, right? Otherwise, it's just the ayes have it, the noes have it. So it's just kind of a different thing. And then this also, so the vote, the presiding officer, the chairman of the board, in this case, always votes. So it doesn't matter, but in another group, the chair votes to make a difference in the outcome. So you may have heard the chair votes to break a tie, but the chair can also vote to make a tie. And what's a tie vote? Lost, it fails, right? So that's the difference there if you're on other groups. Okay, and then we talked about this a lot because you have a different things in your rules about 4 people, not just a majority that takes to do things. And that's really why the roll call is really just really handy for this group. It just makes life easy. Right? Roll call, and there's only 5 names, and get your voice in the room. Yes. Have you been clerk a long time?
19. Well, clerk I've been 10.
Been with the village front, or city with it. Okay, what's the difference between all these words? Accept, approve, adopt, agree, ratify, receive, carry. Trick question, there's no difference between these words, the outcome of these words. So if you think about your minutes 5-10 years from now, and maybe the mailboxes on 5th Street was a really bad idea, and you never really approved of it, but you did approve a committee report that suggested it or something like that, right? So you don't approve reports, you don't move to receive. You just take them. You say thank you. You don't make a motion to do this.
So, you know, most of the time we've all been involved, it was always what was in the minutes, right? But now we all have a digital version. What if the minutes don't say exactly what happened, but the minutes were adopted?
Minutes what?
The minutes control.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Even though that's not what happened at the meeting?
Yeah, I mean, you can amend your minutes.
The minutes are the official record of the meeting, that's why they're approved.
Your minutes, Mark.
Yeah, the minutes is the official record.
That's why you approve them.
Yeah, that's the
No,
official
I
record.
know, I'm just saying.
'Cause you can amend minutes.
Out there, right?
You can amend minutes even, I think might be.
Oh, you can, after they've been approved?
Absolutely.
Oh.
Yeah, you can fix them.
Do it all the time.
You can fix them. And I think I'd have to look, I don't know if OMA has some sort of time restriction. It seems like there might be something
That's
related
how
to
you-
that, but I think that you need to make sure that they're fixed.
So the audio, this YouTube video, if it says something different than what Tammy writes, it's what Tammy writes, that's.
Correct,
What she writes and what you approve at your next meeting.
correct.
Well, you can go back and change it.
Correct. So, but remember, it's what was done, not what was said.
Oh, yeah.
And again, we go back to writing those motions out and making sure that, that you're reading the resolutions too, because Tammy's only human, right? So there could be a big boo-boo in those. I mean, the County Board of Commissioners in Van Buren County, where I'm at, we adopted this farmland preservation ordinance. And at the time, you know, this consultant wrote it, and I trusted him, and blah, blah, blah. And now we're looking back on it, and this statute's not even cited properly. And so nobody really looked. And I'm like, this isn't even the right statute. I'm going by, I said, we gotta fix this. But they adopted it, you know, so we gotta amend the ordinance. But, right? I mean, yeah, so they just trusted us. Okay. Okay, so, I don't know that we have time to practice making a motion, but let's just do it real quick. So, let's do a motion real quick. Let's see how it goes.
Move, we adjourn.
I move, we have fudge sundaes.
I second that.
Hey, you're not on the board. It's up
You
there.
were recognized. You skipped that part. I did.
Oh,
Mayor,
yes.
I would like to move that we have hot fudge sundaes.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there a second?
I second that.
We'll have discussion.
Nope, you're gonna say, it is moved and seconded to have hot fudge sundaes.
Move in second of that we have hot fudge sundaes. Now discussion.
Perfect.
Anybody can discuss, not just the motioner.
But you go back to her first.
Oh, she gets first dibs.
Ice cream is delicious. I would like ice cream.
Thank you. Any other comment?
I agree.
Does anything.
Then we have to vote because it's ice cream, so we could just do.
Any
Hearing no
objections?
objections?
Are there any
Are
objections?
there any objections? Motion carries.
Okay,
That's legal?
yeah, well, sort of. Alright, so let's, real quick now, so let's just talk really quick about emotions that you can do something. These are things that you can, this isn't hard, this isn't hard, this isn't hard. So your main motion, we're gonna have hot fudge sundaes. Now, clearly, okay, so there's all these things you can do, these are all order of a precedence, and these are in your rules too, right? Except there's one added called clear the floor. I don't know where that comes from, but it's a magical thing that someone can move to clear the floor, and if there's too many process things on top of a motion, it negates it. So at some point in time, people got confused about amendments, I suspect, and they wanted a motion to clear the floor. So if you're very confused, you can move that, and it starts back at the main motion level, is my understanding from your own rules. So you may want to look at that. Never used it, I don't know what's in there. But anyway, so you have a clear the floor right here, which is kind of interesting. So these are order of precedence, so you order of making them and the order of voting them, right? So you have your hot fudge sundae. If you decide you want to kill that because you think hot fudge sundaes is definitely against our dairy-free environment and we shouldn't even be talking about it, you would move to postpone indefinitely, and that would go into the merits of the question of how it's not within your mission. It's not something we should be deciding on. We really ought not decide if people should have fudge sundaes. That's postponed indefinitely. Pardon me?
Misappropriation of funds.
Well, not necessarily that, because that would be maybe voting it against the actual thing. Postponing it definitely just puts it away, that we don't have to vote on it. It means we're not voting on it tonight. All right, that's a motion you probably would rarely use, but has some good application from time to time. I've thought of some really good ones for the MSU Board of Trustees. Remember they were in the news for a while? Postpone indefinitely would have been such a really great, they were struggling with their agenda. That's what it was. They messed around for 2 hours on their agenda. They really should have voted, they really should have had it, and someone should have moved to postpone it indefinitely, and it would have been off the table. Instead, they took 2 hours fighting over the agenda. Dumb. Where was the parliamentarian? Not there. And I don't know if I'd been that quick. All right, and then amend. Okay, to amend something, you can amend a main motion. How would we amend our hot fudge sundae motion?
Add a cherry.
Caramel.
Caramel always comes up. This is a great. All right, so the motion, we're in debate, okay, and so get recognized.
Chair, I would like to amend the motion that we add caramel to our fudge.
Okay, it's been
You have
moved.
to second that one? Is there a second for that? I'm supposed to say it all over
That's
again?
fine, is there a second? No, there's a second. Is there a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded. I'll do it for you. It's been moved and seconded to add caramel after the word fudge and caramel. We're gonna, and caramel. Okay, is there any debate? Any debate on adding caramel? No debate? All right, you ready for the question? Oh, I'm sorry, you know what we forgot to do? We forgot to go back to the maker, right? Did you wanna add anything to your caramel?
Toffee.
No.
No.
I really think, okay, here, let me be him. I really think we should have a variety. Okay, all right.
On the next
All right,
meeting.
all right. It's been moved and seconded to, okay, so Carl, so any more debate? Hearing no more debate, all those in favor of the amendment, which, by the way, if adopted, it'll be fudge and caramel. Okay, all those in favor of the amendment say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion as amended is now to have hot fudge and caramel sundaes. Any more debate? No more debate? You ready for the question? The question is adopting the motion to have hot fudge and caramel sundaes. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. My God, you won't even help me out with the vote.
Starting to confuse me now.
Is it too late?
Glazed over.
Yeah. Okay, so it's getting late, so that's why. But really, what I did was I took the amendment first. We decided if we wanted it, and we wanted it. So then we went back to the main motion. We still have to decide on the main motion. We just changed the main motion. Okay, and this could be done with resolutions. You can say, I'd like to add a paragraph, or I'd like to add a couple sentences between paragraphs 2 and 3. Insert these 2 sentences. Is there a second to that? Or is there any objection? Because you've been bantering. Is there any objection to Tammy adding those 2 sentences to the resolution? Objection? Okay. The resolution as amended is this and this and this. But otherwise you would take a vote. Yes or no? And some people may say no. They say no, okay, and it doesn't add, we're gonna just go back to the main resolution.
Refer it to the planning commission.
Alright, so, perfect. So he's tired, he says, you know what, I can't believe we're talking about Sundays, this is a planning commission issue. I move to refer it, which is the next motion on the top here. I move to refer this and all its hearing motions, everything to the planning commission. Is there a second? Second. It's been moved to refer the hot fudge and possibly caramel sundaes to the planning commission. Any debate? Would you like to tell us why you think the planning commission would be good at that?
Planning commission has much more expertise in where the ice cream is made within the city and what the best ice cream is, so we should really get their input first.
Okay, good. So, all right, any more debate? All right, the question is on whether we should refer this to the planning commission. All those in favor of referring this motion to the planning commission say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. This motion is now referred and will come back after the next planning commission meeting, right? All right, so we had amendments on the table, say we didn't, but he was tired of talking about it, so members have the right to conclude their debate with a higher ranking motion, right? Boom, boom, boom. So, previous question. Previous question means to stop debate. See how a high ranking motion that is, right? All very high ranking, and then lay on the table, we don't even talk about it so high. So previous questions means stop debate. So Fred has had just about enough of this hot fudge sundae talk. And he's had a chance to say his 2 cents, but he doesn't want anyone else to say anything more. So he says, I call the question, after, of course, being recognized. So if you're not recognized and it's not your turn to speak, remember we said everyone gets a chance first before everyone gets a second chance. His chance comes up and he doesn't want to talk about it at all. So he gets recognized by me, I'm the chair. Fred says, I call the question. Okay, the question's been called. Is there a second? No second? There, okay, we'll continue on to the debate. Right, it takes a second. It's not an immediate shutdown, all right? However, the chair, if someone's going, chair, we ought to call the question, the chair might say, we are getting a little bit out of hand here. Is there any objection to stopping debate? That's how on a small board that can happen. But in a small board, it'd be unlikely that anyone would ever call the question. In a small board of 5. It would just be rude. I mean, you only talk once, twice. You can twice. I mean, what else? Yeah. So anyway, doesn't make sense. All right, so that's call the question, but don't let people take advantage of you in meetings because someone out of blue will call, I call the question, and that's not fine, good for you. This person's got the floor. They're talking right now. When it's your turn, I'll listen. And when you do make that motion, it's a second and a 2/3 vote. I think you might say majority in your rules. All right. So we've talked about how to amend a motion. You insert or add, you strike and insert. That's really good form, and it makes it clear what we're doing. We're striking this, we're going to insert caramel, or we're going to strike caramel and insert fudge, whatever. Postpone means or refer to another meeting or a committee. Stop debate is previous question. And then I say avoid using the word table because table goes to table land, all right? And tabling is a motion that only should be used as a temporary set aside. So when you say, well, Chair, I think we should table this until we have some ice cream in the freezer. Well, no, I think we should table this. And you would say, why? And you would say, well, we're getting our ice cream shipment next week. We'll have more at the next meeting. So what you're really asking to do is postpone it until the next meeting. So postponing, referring to a committee, that's really more specific. And we know where it goes. It's just not going to table land, okay? Table land is supposed to happen in the meeting. The architect or the engineers came, you know, you were talking about ice cream. The engineers walked in and said, okay, I move to table this until right now because the engineers are here. Yeah, is there a second? All those in favor of tabling?
That's legit.
That's legit. And then once the engineers are done, you take it from the table. I move to take this from the table. Well, you might want to leave it tabled for the next meeting because you know there's not enough time to complete it. At which time, any items that were tabled, you would go under unfinished business. If you didn't get to it, then it just falls off the table. It's like it never happened and you need to reintroduce it some other way. It's not a way to kill it. Okay? So tabling is just a temporary set aside. It's better to do something specific. Either postpone it indefinitely to get rid of it, or postpone it definitely to a time certain, or refer it to a committee, or a person, or the manager, or the clerk. Okay. And I won't go into any other ones except incidental motions. Here, these are really handy. You would probably never use them in this small group, though. Well, you might, because you get along well. But they are on the appeal, the decision of the chair. So they are all here under non-ranking, and so as you can see, many of them can interrupt the speaker. They have an I there, right? Point of order is a really important one. That means that's against the rules. Parliamentary inquiry means I'm really confused. Could you tell me I want to change this motion? How might I do it? Will someone help me, please? A request for information is I need clarification about something. A good example of a request for information, again, it can interrupt a speaker. Mr. Mayor, can we ask the treasurer, do we have enough money for this? You know, that gets to the point. An appeal is from the decision of the chair. If the chair makes a decision, makes a ruling on some sort of process, a member can appeal the decision of the chair. And what they would do is appeal it, and the chair would say that the decision of the chair has been appealed. Is there a second? Second. So again, one person can't gang up on the chair, right? It's gotta be two people. Well, okay, it's been moved and seconded to appeal the decision of the chair. I'm gonna tell you what I think about this. I'm the chair, I'm right, I'm always right. I can't believe you're questioning me. And then anybody who wishes to speak can speak. And after everyone has spoken, the chair gets one more chance and says, you guys are all right, I'm sorry. He said, I'm still right. I'm still right, so let's bring it to the vote. The question on the floor is, shall the decision of the chair be sustained? And you vote. You all get to decide if the chair's decision stands. And that would be on issues like, is something against the rules?
Somebody get kicked out of the meeting.
Somebody getting kicked out of the
I think
meeting.
that's where it would come to play.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
for us, certainly.
Well, and that's kind of, I think you wouldn't have, yeah, I think you would. If you need help too, if the mayor needs help, don't make the decision on your own. You take it to the group right now. Okay, guys, we have some real disturbance in the room right now. I'd like to take a vote. How many of you think that we should call the sheriff or have this person escorted? Instead of even using is there any objection? I would say let's take a vote, and hopefully you would all support if it was really serious. If not, then I don't think that's not necessarily an appeal of one of your decisions, but rather, you can take it to the group.
At the end of the day, we support fair. Right? So, I think you covered it too, I just didn't word it in the same way. But we're all here to do the city's business.
That's right.
Right?
Right.
So,
If the chair is trying to really do the right thing, you need the
yes,
support of.
That's
And
what I
then-
mean.
And then maybe day after, what, you know, a couple days later, you could talk to the chair on the side and say, you know, here's how I think you should have done that. It would have been better if you'd done it this way, right? But you don't necessarily have to do that in front of the group, especially if it's dealing with the public. You need to all support each other. Okay, it's, all right, reconsider, we talked about this early on, and so unless you have questions about that. And then I talked about how everything is the group, right? Nobody has more power than another. I mean, we do hold up our mayor as high esteem and we rely on him to lead us. But in terms of voting and speaking, everyone has the same rights. But one person can do a lot of things, right? One person can raise these incidental motions, the point of order, the parliamentary inquiry. You can decide not to show up, prevent a quorum from being present, which isn't a good thing to do. You can change your vote. I don't know that you'd ever have a situation where you would do that since your roll call. But seriously, if you are last maybe you're last or you were first, and you really want it to be unanimous or something, you voted no, but everybody else voted yes, you can. I'm requesting permission to change my vote, or just I'd like to change my vote before it's like final. You know, you could do that. You're not stuck. It might go the other way if it's 3-2 or 3-2-2 or you know something. You might have said, you know what, I'm changed my mind. You can do that before it's announced. That's appropriate. After it's announced, you could ask for permission, but before it's announced, you have a right to change your vote. And you haven't object to unanimous consent. So that's like if there's anybody agree. I don't agree. I want to vote on this. I want to see what I want to make everybody. Okay. So that's my presentation.
I
And
got one question. I know Mayor Gunther wanted to ask this earlier, and it's something that I don't let him do. Is
One thing?
I'd like to know if he can make the motion.
oh, he does ask that, right? So you know what? Yeah. I mean, you can entertain. You say, here's what I think we were talking about. It sounds to me like we really the thing we're talking about right now is eating hot fudge sundaes. I entertain that. Would anyone like to
Entertain that motion.
I entertain that motion.
He's kind of
Coaching,
guiding it, he's
facilitating.
coaching and
Mhm.
facilitating as opposed to
Yeah.
making it himself.
Yeah, or fixing something. You said don't. So you said something about how So what you're really saying? What's your name? Karen. So what you're really saying, Karen, is that you think we should have hot fudge sundaes at 5:30 on Tuesday the 16th.
Gotcha.
You can fix it for you. Is that what I hear you saying?
I see.
Yes, that's exactly it, Chair.
I see.
So when's the situation when he wants to make a motion?
Well, like say any of these resolutions.
Yeah.
We have all written out.
Yeah.
So he's not doing a motion, we're doing all the, like voting the first one to move a resolution.
Yeah, you don't need to do that.
Okay. Before you leave, if it's.
I'm running out right
nothing to do
now.
with
What?
you, why do we have to allow people who don't live in our city
Oh.
speak at public comment?
Well, I think that's.
That irritates the heck out of me.
Well, yeah, that's your problem.
Okay, so that's my problem, but it still irritates.
Yeah, you cannot prevent anyone from attending your meetings. Now, you could have rules about speaking if, it was a huge meeting and they had to have their comments in by 3, and you've heard some school boards have done that. You have to have your comment card in by 5 or your name in by 5 hours before the meeting, and you could do that. It's not good, probably good rep.
I don't understand why people can come from some
Well, they
township way out there and tell us how we should be thinking.
Yeah, I know.
You have to.
I mean, you could try not doing it. That's no problems. Give them 2 minutes.
Probably end up in jail.
I think the better thing, you have 3-minute comments, maybe have them be 2. People are out of
We've
hand.
gone from 5 to 3.
Yeah,
5
3
was long.
5 is way too long. I agree. I think 3 is plenty. And I think, and you have plenty of opportunity for folks to talk about agenda and non-agenda. You're very open, and I think that's healthy. Someone might be considering starting a business though, or moving here, or their children goes to Ferris. I mean, that's probably huge, right?
School of choice, a lot of their kids go to school.
Anytime we have something on there about the Chinese battery plant, this place will be full and they'll be.
And that's in the township, that's not the city?
Well, but that's where you could also guide the conversation,
Yes.
where if someone has already said the thing that you want to say.
Yes.
We would ask that you not repeat that, that you
Right.
present something new.
That doesn't go real well.
Look,
In those circumstances.
So I think though, you're right, so the public interface is really important, and I think you have your public comment time, you have your rules, you say, okay, now, please address the board, but there's also a time when there's contentious issues to say things like, looks like a lot of you are here, I'm just hearing a little bit, it sounds like you might be here, for the battery issue. How many are here for about the battery issue? Okay, so I see most of you are here for the battery issue. You know, you can kind of preface it. First of all, I want to tell you that's not the city's jurisdiction. We are not a decision-making body. You can actually like set forth some things. You often do that in a public hearing kind of situation, but why not just kind of give some information? That's what they're here. That's what they're yearning for. That's what they want to hear, right? There's nothing wrong with kind of setting the tone. Really want to hear from you. I want you to know that there's not a damn thing we can do about the battery issue. I don't know if that's.
And say that.
Well, I wouldn't say damn, but I would say that. You know, right? Yeah, I mean, right? Don't you think? Set up for success. Infuse it. Welcome them. Thank you so much. We're so interested that you're here. We are on YouTube. We're on. Do we don't want to tell them that? You know. But I think you can. I think you need to be honest with the public and be transparent like that. I hate that word transparency drives me crazy, but in this case, you might as well tell them what you're thinking. Or if there's an issue, you've been like the master plan, you're going to start working on your master plan. You know, you're going to work on it for 18 months. All of a sudden, you're going to get a room full of people. When you've already been working on it 18 months, asking for input. No one's coming.
And they don't show up.
And they don't show up until you're about ready to adopt it. And you're like, come on, we've been working on this. We've been trying to do this. We got surveys out there, you know. Again, preface it. You know, we've worked on this for 18 months. It's been open, it's been public, that kind of thing. Planning commission, the same thing, right? Set the tone for the meeting, yeah. So, anything else?
Is General Robert like your great-great-grandfather?
No, but do I have a picture of Henry? Wait, where's my picture? Ah, what did I do? Oh, shoot.
You want a picture?
No, but I gotta get, this presentation, I don't know what I did. I wasn't happy with it at the city, and I went ahead and just used it again, and I got some of my best stuff in here.
Are there groups that they pay you to attend their meetings?
Yeah. Like parliamentarian?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, it's not even here. What did I do with it?
General. Missed
You
it.
live in Pawpaw, have you done this presentation in the village of Pawpaw?
They need it, Brad, or what?
I thank you for letting me use this presentation with you. It's not my favorite because I have a picture of me and Henry Robert III, the great grandson.
Really?
Yeah, and it's not here, and it's a really good picture of me. That's why I have it. But during the 11th edition, and now we're on the 12th edition.
Brad didn't even have the up-to-date edition.
Yeah, this is the current one. And I did bring some of these. That if you want to buy one, they're $10. I brought some if you want. This is I didn't really go through. I was trying to go fast. This is the big book. This is the mini book, and then I gave you this, right? That's all you need. But there's a bunch of books out there. There's Idiot's Guide.
Have you ever read the one, Roberts for Dummies?
Yeah, Roberts for Dummies. I think I sold that to some. Oh no, I have it right here. Roberts for Dummies. I have samples. So this is an older version. No, this is the 11th edition, but.
Maybe a little easier to read.
Yeah, well, this is easy. No, I recommend this. It's really, really simple, and it's the kind of the definitive book. But yeah, there's a lot of nice ones. This one's brand new by Jim Slater. This is what I was talking about. He wrote the Idiot's Guide, and this is a little.
They get smaller and smaller.
Yeah, they're small books, and this one I was reading this. I bought this because it was new, and I was really pleasantly surprised. I mean, this might as well be my script. He even uses my jokes. I'm like,
Ice cream? They talk about ice cream in this?
yeah, ice cream.
What's the legal implication of effing up a thing in a meeting? You know, at the end
I'm an attorney.
you go, oh my God, I blew that one.
No, you just redo it, right?
You do it.
You know,
Because I'm sure we do it. Not our issue.
process.
There's some things that I hear, like, let's just say we all voted one way and then thought about it
We've
and
never,
wished that we would have
yes.
reconsidered it.
You can bring it back.
And knowing that we could do that, I think there's some certain
Or
things
changing
that I
your
can
vote,
think,
change
that
your
I
vote.
can think of that as a group, we may have all kind of leaned.
Hopefully it's not buying police cars.
Right? No, because I'm
Because
guessing
Heather
you
already
guys
ordered
already
it.
ordered.
Told Berger just now.
I mean,
Bob Evans.
one of the questions I was gonna ask was, why are we doing this? Heather ordered it last week. What are you talking about?
So thanks for
Thank you.
inviting me.
Thank you very much.
If you have problems, or Tammy, if they're causing you trouble, you just let me know. And I would take a look at your rules. There might be some, probably simplify them a little bit. They're a little bit, probably a little bit too much, maybe.
Well, don't drive
Nice
home.
job.
It's too far to park.
No, I won't drive home. I was gonna, but now I'm not.
Yeah, you do a great job.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
They need it. Oh, we're adjourned. Is your hubby waiting?
Oh, I just texted now, cause I would never know how long.